Sylvia Brown predicted, February 2026 will change the lives of only these zodiac signs. February 2026 will be the point where the power of events ceases to be a coincidence. Sylvia Brown's predictions, which have long been underestimated, are suddenly becoming acute. Only a few zodiac signs will enter a period of decisive changes that will affect their reality, from personal power to financial growth. As the author of this channel, I will show you the clear mechanisms of these transformations. Who will rise? Who will gain access to new opportunities? And what will trigger their breakthrough? In this video, you will receive a straightforward, professional explanation without vague wording, only the essence, based on deep esoteric principles and knowledge that I convey as a practitioner of forecasting the future. Before moving on to the signs, write your date of birth in the comments. I will tell you which group of changes you belong to, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. The events of 2026 will unfold faster than you think. Aries. For Aries, February 2026 will be a month when their usual impulsive behavior will be sharply tested for maturity, and it is precisely their ability to act not on emotions, but from a conscious inner position that will determine where their whole future life will turn. So the first thing that will change is their attitude to money and work. People of this sign stop chasing quick results and start looking at finances as a system rather than random income. They develop a clear desire to achieve a stable income, get rid of debts, close old financial holes, and stop spending on emotions. Therefore, in February 2026, Aries may make a key decision related to work or business, to move from temporary jobs to one main direction, to refuse toxic cooperation, to terminate a contract that has long since exhausted itself, or to finally legalize their activities in order to come out of the shadows and have a predictable income. During this period, a different logic of professional development begins to emerge for representatives of this sign. They stop spreading themselves too thin, stop mixing hobbies, random opportunities, and their actual career into one chaotic mess, and instead develop a sober view of their own strengths and form a specific professional niche where Aries cease to be an eternal beginner and begins to build a reputation as an expert. Therefore, February becomes the month when the first steps are taken towards increasing the value of one's labor. New rates, a change of position, a move to a company where results are valued more than loyalty, or the launch of a personal project with a clear structure, rather than when inspiration strikes. Financially, this month forces Aries to face all the habits that previously caused money to leak away. Impulsive purchases, emotional spending to drown out fatigue, supporting people who give nothing in return. It is in February that the internal decision to end this scenario comes. The first budget appears, clear planning, division of funds into essential needs, development, and reserves. So those belonging to this sign gain a tangible foundation of inner security that was previously lacking. In the sphere of relationships, this period removes the rose-colored glasses, but it does so not cruelly, but accurately. Aries suddenly sees clearly who is moving forward with them and who is exhausting, oppressing, and slowing down any progress. And February becomes a time for honest conversations, setting boundaries, ending manipulation, the habit of taking everything upon themselves. So partnerships in which people of this sign felt only duty and not support undergo a serious transformation. Some leave toxic relationships. Others take their relationships to another level, writing new rules of interaction that respect each other's personal time, goals, and work. For those Aries who have been lonely for a long time or have not allowed themselves intimacy, February 2026 becomes a month when their inner attitude towards partnership changes. Instead of the attitude, "nobody understands me," a pragmatic view emerges that relationships are not a romantic fantasy, but a union of two adults. During this period, selectivity increases, and the urge to rush into a relationship based solely on sympathy or passion disappears, giving way to acquaintances based on shared values and integrity of character, rather than just emotional passion. In everyday life, February forces Aries to tidy up their space. There is a need to get rid of everything unnecessary, put documents, financial files, and electronic accounts in order, and free the apartment or house from things that constantly remind them of unsuccessful stages of life. And it is thanks to this internal spring cleaning that the feeling that the past is holding them back and preventing them from moving forward disappears. In terms of health, this sign receives a clear signal that it is impossible to continue living on constant adrenaline, caffeine, and lack of sleep. The body begins to respond with fatigue, tension, and signals from the heart, back, and nervous system. And it is in February that Aries finally stops putting off examinations, consultations, and basic changes in their routine. They become ready to plan their rest as seriously as their work tasks, to systematically take care of their physical form, and not someday when there is time. Internally, this period provides the main thing, the clarity that was so lacking before. Aries stops living in a mode of constantly putting out fires, and a vision emerges of what they are working for, who they want to deal with, what lifestyle they consider normal for themselves, and what they are willing to tolerate and what they will never tolerate again. Therefore, February 2026 is a turning point for this sign, when their internal position becomes tougher but healthier. No more agreeing to other people's scenarios, no more putting themselves, their goals, and their health on hold. No more willingness to take responsibility for those who don't even try to move forward. In professional contacts, February brings situations in which Aries can either remain in the role of a striking force for other people's projects, or ask for fair pay, transparent conditions, and respect for their time. Therefore, everything related to negotiations, renegotiating agreements, adjusting work schedules, increasing the cost of services or salaries, has a chance to move forward during this period, provided that representatives of this sign do not fall back into their usual pattern of avoiding conflict. February also builds a new level of relationship with oneself. Aries stops trying to constantly prove something to someone, changes the tone of their internal dialogue, replacing self-criticism with sober assessment and constructive steps. And this transition from the "I always have to do more" mode to the "I have the right to support, rest, and decent pay" mode becomes the internal axis around which all changes revolve. For many representatives of this sign, this month is associated with the first real step towards personal independence, moving into separate accommodation, separating from a family that was putting pressure on them, starting their own business, switching to a remote format that gives them more freedom, or completing documents that have been put off for a long time, but give them the opportunity to move, change cities, countries, or fields. The key feature of this period is that life no longer allows Aries to remain in the role of an eternal beginner. February 2026 presents them with the fact that it is time to decide what quality of life they choose, what price they are willing to pay for stability, health, and freedom, who they will move forward with and who they will leave behind. And how honestly Aries answers these questions will determine whether this month will be a turning point toward growth or another attempt to escape their own decisions. But it is here, in specific actions, in reviewing finances, surroundings, and routines, that a new trajectory begins, one that will take them to a completely different level of life. Taurus. In the life of a Taurus, according to Sylvia Brown's prediction, February 2026 will act as a powerful switch, after which the entire future reality will no longer return to its previous format. It is in this month that people of this sign will change their financial strategy, approach to work, attitude to their own body, and to the people with whom they share their space on a daily basis. So all the events that will unfold from January to December 2026 will only be understandable through the prism of the decisions that Taurus will make during February. Already in January, it will become apparent that the usual patterns will no longer work as before. Things that provided a more or less stable income will stall, old agreements will lose their meaning, promises from other people will be postponed or reformatted, and it is against this backdrop that February 2026 will offer Taurus clear, albeit difficult, options for reaching a new level of security and control over their own future. At this time, people of this sign will not agree to play the role of an inconspicuous worker in the shadows. They will strive for transparent conditions, fixed amounts, realistic deadlines, respectful treatment, and work formats where they will have the opportunity to grow rather than just hold on to their position. In the financial sphere, February 2026 will be a period when talking about money will no longer be awkward or postponed for Taurus. Representatives of this sign will discuss payment more strictly, review rates, demand official registration and clear contracts, and refuse projects where everything is based only on words. It is during this period that Taurus will have a chance to break out of the long-standing pattern of working more than they are paid, and they will be ready to change jobs, reorient themselves to another market segment where their skills will be truly appreciated, or finally take their own activities, which until then will have existed as a hobby or side job, to a more systematic level. The first results of these decisions will be visible in March. New offers will come in, access to clients or employers of a different scale will appear, income will become more predictable, and expenses will become more controllable. So by April, Taurus will no longer perceive money as something that comes by chance, but as an area in which they set the rules and pace. At the same time, February will not only be a month of finances, it will change the very structure of Taurus's daily life. Their daily routine, diet, sleep quality, and attitude toward their resources will all undergo a serious review. Where previously, people of this sign were willing to endure fatigue, inconvenient schedules, lack of sleep, and working through the pain, in February, they will ask themselves, what will happen to them in a year if they continue to ignore the signals from their body? And it is on this realization that concrete steps will be based. Making appointments with doctors, changing workloads, choosing physical activities that will actually support rather than exhaust them, reorganizing their diet, and giving up excesses that sap their energy. Starting in April, the Taurus's body will respond with gratitude, more stable sleep, fewer mood swings, and better tone, which in turn will allow them to keep up with the new pace of work without going to extremes. The changes in the sphere of everyday life and housing will be particularly noticeable. February 2026 will push Taurus to more clearly define the space in which they live. For some, this will mean moving to another area, city, or even country. For others, it will mean moving into separate accommodation if they have had to share with relatives or neighbors for a long time. And for others, it will mean renovating, remodeling, or buying necessary equipment that has been put off for a long time. In any case, this month will challenge Taurus to make their home a place where they feel secure and resourceful, rather than constantly tired. Starting in May, this transformation of everyday life will have a noticeable effect. There will be more energy for the realization of professional ideas, fewer irritations related to everyday life, and the feeling that home is something to be endured will disappear. In relationships, February 2026 will serve as an honest test of strength and relevance. If the partnership is based solely on habit, fear of loneliness, economic benefit, or the expectation that someone will change someday, the representative of this sign will be forced to look at it without embellishment. During this period, direct questions will be asked. Will this person be there when Taurus moves toward new goals? Will they respect their new rhythm, financial decisions, boundaries? Will they support changes in routine, diet, work? If the answer is negative, February may be the month when the relationship comes to an end, or at least a different format of living together is proposed, where responsibility and care will be distributed differently. For those in a harmonious partnership, this period will, on the contrary, contribute to a transition to a qualitatively different level of mutual support. Discussing joint long-term plans, decisions about housing, investments, possible moves, issues of raising children, and the distribution of responsibilities so that one partner does not have to carry the entire burden. For single representatives of this sign, February 2026 will open up a different format for dating. People of this sign will be less responsive to superficial sympathy and more responsive to shared values, the ability of the other person to keep their word, and to treat their time and resources with care. They will choose not the person with whom it's not boring today, but the person with whom it will be possible to build a future. From March to June, they may meet people through their professional sphere, studies, joint projects, or a change of residence. And it is these contacts that will have the potential to turn into lasting relationships in which Taurus will not lose themselves, but on the contrary, will reveal their strengths. Career-wise, February 2026 will be like moving from one level to another for Taurus. People of this sign will feel that their current position, even if it is stable, no longer corresponds to their professional weight. Therefore, it will be most appropriate at this time to review job responsibilities, look for opportunities for promotion, move to another company, start your own business, or launch new areas in an existing business. All the steps taken in February will yield noticeable results closer to summer. In June to July, Taurus's recognition in the professional environment will increase. More clients will come in on recommendation, and a reputation as a reliable specialist who keeps their word and does quality work will be formed. By autumn, this could translate into a significant increase in income or the ability to choose who to work with and who not to work with. The ability to plan for the long term will play a special role for Taurus in 2026. February will be the starting point for reviewing not only the monthly or quarterly budget, but also the entire financial horizon for the year and beyond. During this period, people of this sign will be ready to set up savings, reserve funds, investment instruments, insurance, and distribute income so that part of it is definitely set aside for the future and does not dissolve in small expenses. From March to September, this strategy will gradually give a feeling of greater stability. Unpredictable situations will no longer throw you off track as before, because Taurus will have created a reserve of strength that will allow them to calmly respond to any delays or changes in income. It is important that throughout the year, starting in February, a new circle of communication will form. Where there used to be people who only criticized, devalued, and hindered any changes, over time there will be those who will share their experience, motivate, and show real examples of successful professional and financial decisions. In the spring and summer of 2026, Taurus will have the chance to join professional communities, educational programs, and business environments where they will grow faster than on their own. This, in turn, will help them give up toxic relationships without feeling empty, because instead, Taurus will have more quality, mature, mutually supportive contacts in their life. Internally, February 2026 will start a process for Taurus where they will rely more on their own decisions rather than the expectations of others. They will look less at what is right from the point of view of family or society, and more at what really suits their temperament, talents, and real-life goals. From March to August, they will develop a new self-esteem, not through external achievements, but through the feeling that they are in control of their own path rather than drifting along with the flow. This will affect all decisions, from minor everyday ones to strategic ones related to their place of residence, field of activity, and relationship formats. At the end of the year, especially in November and December 2026, Taurus will have the opportunity to assess how radically February will change their life. By this point, many representatives of the sign will have a different financial reality than at the beginning of the year. A more stable income, fewer debt obligations, a clear plan for the future, and a reserve fund. There will be a different structure to the day, with room not only for work, but also for rest, health, and personal interests. There will be a different circle of friends, no longer including those who systematically undermined Taurus's self-confidence. And all this will be a direct result of the decisions he makes when February 2026 presents him with a choice, either to continue as usual or to live in such a way that every effort has a tangible meaning and result. A separate layer of change in 2026 for Taurus will be related to learning and expanding competencies. The events of February will push him to realize that his old knowledge will not be enough for the level of income and conditions he will want to have. That is why during this period, he will become interested in courses, certifications, additional specializations, learning foreign languages, and mastering digital tools that will make him more flexible in the market. From April to October 2026, Taurus will consistently apply these skills at work. They will take on more complex tasks. They will not be afraid of technology, and they will be ready to learn new formats of communication with clients or management. This, in turn, will open doors for them to environments that they would not have even considered before, believing that they were not for them. And this is where one of the key predictions will come into play. People of this sign will move away from the role of simply following instructions and will take on the role of shaping the approach, proposing solutions, and leading the process. An important area of transformation will be Taurus's attitude toward personal boundaries and responsibility. The circumstances of February 2026 will show them where they are taking on too much. In their family, at work, in their friendships. Where they are used to taking on extra shifts, doing other people's work, paying for someone else's mistakes, and being an invisible savior, situations will develop in such a way that it will be simply impossible to continue in the same vein. Either their health will send a signal, or their finances will decline, or their emotional exhaustion will become too obvious. Starting in February, Taurus will learn to say no without guilt, will introduce clearer rules of communication, and will refuse tasks that are not paid or do not respect his resources. By August, this will result in more equal, mature relationships, where there will be no one-sided sacrifices, but a balance between what they give and what they receive. In the family sphere, 2026 will also feel like a shift in emphasis. For some representatives of the sign, February will be a period when they will make decisions about distancing themselves from relatives who are used to controlling, pressuring, and interfering in their finances or personal lives. For others, on the contrary, this month will be associated with greater responsibility for older family members, which will require Taurus to properly organize their time, finances, and care. In both cases, they will be faced with the task of finding a format in which they will not lose themselves, seeking support, distributing responsibilities, and not taking on more than they can actually handle. The autumn months especially October, will show how successful they are in doing this. If in February, they honestly determine the limits of what is permissible and what resources are available, then in the final months of the year, family relationships will look much healthier than before. Another important theme that will unfold for Taurus from February 2026 is their attitude toward personal dreams and deferred desires. Where they used to say to themselves, "Later, not now. Everyone else first, then myself." This year they will prioritize differently. After the first financial results of spring and summer, they will have the opportunity to plan trips, study, and purchase things that really matter, rather than just covering urgent technical needs. November and December 2026 will not look like another exhausting summing up, but like a time when Taurus will allow himself rewards for the path he has traveled during the year. Small and big joys that he previously put off for later will finally take their place in his life. And this will also be influenced by February 2026, a month that will trigger a reassessment of what is truly important to them and help them stop living only for their duties and start living in such a way that each period of the year has room for development, stability, support, and the fulfillment of their own desires. Gemini. Gemini will enter February 2026 with the feeling that there will be too much information and not enough clarity, and it is during this period, according to Sylvia Brown's prediction, that the entire field of decisions, contacts, and opportunities for this sign will be reformatted, so that by March, Gemini will no longer recognize their own lives. In January 2026, they will be torn between several directions, ideas, plans, and parallel tasks. There will be a desire to be everywhere at once, but the result will seem blurred. However, it is against the backdrop of this dispersion that February will be the month when Gemini will be forced to choose their main vector. Not 5 weak directions, but 1 or 2 strong ones. In the sphere of work, this will mean that they will stop spending hours on small, low-paying tasks that do not lead to development and will shift their focus to projects where their intelligence, flexibility of thinking, and communication skills will be paid for on a real scale. At this time, Gemini will be ready to negotiate a different format of cooperation: remote work, flexible hours, additional pay for intellectual tasks, participation in strategy, and not just technical execution. For some, February will mark the start of a transition to a new profession related to analytics, communications, content, education, consulting, IT, sales, or media. For others, it will be the moment when they launch their own online venture, a blog, channel, educational product, or service. Financially, February 2026 for Gemini will be associated not so much with instant big money as with a system overhaul. The representatives of this sign will analyze where their resources are going, which subscriptions, expenses, and small pleasures are actually eating up a significant portion of their income. And it is this month that they will make specific decisions to give up unnecessary expenses, introduce limits, and plan their budget not chaotically, but purposefully. In March and April, the first results of this approach will appear. There will be a feeling that there will not be more money right away, but its movement will become more predictable. Opportunities will open up to save, form reserves, invest in training, equipment, and tools that will strengthen the professional positions of Gemini. In May to June 2026, some Gemini will already feel that their finances no longer depend on their boss's mood or random orders. There will be several sources of income, a structured approach to payment, an understanding of which actions bring real financial results and which only create the illusion of employment. February 2026 will be particularly challenging in the field of communications. Gemini will be forced to weed out contacts that take up information resources but do not return value. Where they used to spend hours on endless correspondence, empty conversations, and discussing other people's problems, in February there will be a clear understanding. Either communication brings benefits, support, and development, or it will be limited. This does not mean that Gemini will become cold. They will simply distribute their attention differently. In March, there will be more professional contacts in their lives, people with whom they can discuss ideas, projects, and learning opportunities, rather than just everyday trifles. By July, this will develop into the formation of a new circle of friends, where Gemini will be perceived not as the life of the party, who can be overwhelmed with other people's stories, but as a partner in development with whom it makes sense to build joint ventures. Relationships for Gemini in 2026 will also go through a February turning point. Where the union is superficial, built on entertainment, unstable emotions, and easy promises, February will bring all the weak points to the surface: the inability to speak directly, avoidance of difficult topics, and fear of taking responsibility. At this time, Gemini will either learn to speak directly as adults or risk losing a connection that cannot withstand the test of realistic questions. How responsibilities will be divided, what financial agreements will be made, and what common goals will be set. For couples who are ready for honesty, February will be a point of strengthening. Plans for the year, possible moves, joint budget formats, and support for each other in education and career growth will be discussed. For singles, these events will change the criteria for choosing a partner. Those who think maturely, keep their word, and respect the boundaries and pace of life of Gemini will become closer. In the spring and summer, especially in April and August, many representatives of this sign will make new acquaintances through work, study, conferences, and online projects. And it is these contacts that have the potential to develop into serious relationships. In terms of health, February 2026 will be a month when the pace of life will require a new routine for Gemini. The work schedule, amount of information, plans, and tasks will be so intense that continuing to live on random sleep, coffee, and constant rushing will be impossible without consequences. The body will begin to send signals: headaches, eye strain, and nervous system fatigue. And Gemini, if they listen to themselves, will change their approach, planning rest as a mandatory element, introducing breaks from working with gadgets, and monitoring their sleep schedule. In March to April, they will look for a comfortable form of physical activity that does not require heroism, but will maintain their energy: walking, light fitness, yoga, swimming, to dancing, something that fits into their lifestyle. By September, those Gemini who respond to their body's signals in time will feel more collected and focused, and they will be able to work with information more efficiently without exhausting themselves after each working day. After February 2026, the professional year for Gemini will unfold according to the principle of increasing expertise. If before that, they often agreed to the role of a universal firefighter who takes on everything, then starting in February, there will be a gradual specialization. They will choose topics and niches where their experience and quick thinking will yield the greatest return. In April and May, the first results of this specialization will begin to appear. They will be invited to participate in more complex projects where they will need to not only complete tasks, but also think about structure, strategy, and communication logic. By August, their professional reputation will have grown so much that they will receive orders and offers by name, as people of this sign will be recommended as those who can quickly understand a new topic, explain it clearly, and present it well. Learning will be an important theme this year. February will encourage Gemini to rethink their knowledge base. They will feel that the information they are currently using is outdated or superficial for the level they are striving for. Therefore, at this time, there will be a desire to improve qualifications, take courses, obtain certifications, master new digital tools, and improve foreign language skills. In May to June, these educational steps will begin to have a concrete effect. Some Gemini will gain access to other markets, foreign clients, and international companies, while others will have the opportunity to lead educational products, consult, and create new quality content. By October, it will be clear that every effort in education will not be wasted. It will return in the form of new work formats, greater autonomy, and bargaining power. On a domestic level, February 2026 will push Gemini to optimize their space. Where they used to store mountains of things, documents, and files just in case during this period, they will feel the need to sort everything out. This will not just be cleaning. It will be a symbolic cleansing of old, unfinished business, old projects that have long lost their relevance, incomprehensible obligations, unnecessary things that only remind them of chaos. In March to April, it will become easier to breathe in the homes of Gemini. The freed up space will allow them to work and relax without feeling under constant pressure. In May to July, some representatives of this sign will decide to change their place of residence, or at least its format, move closer to work, choose an area with better infrastructure, or a more convenient environment for concentration. In the middle of the year, especially in July and August, another important theme will emerge: personal responsibility for words. Gemini will get used to handling information easily, but under the influence of the events of 2026, they will feel that every promise, every public comment, every dialogue can have consequences. This will result in two parallel lines of development. First, they will be more careful about what to talk about, what to write, and what information to pass on, without spreading rumors or provoking unnecessary tension. Second, they will demand the same responsibility from those around them. If someone makes a promise, they must fulfill it. If someone misses a deadline or violates an agreement, they will speak about it directly. By November, many Gemini will have formed a circle of people with whom they can build relationships without fear that their words will remain mere figures of speech. The autumn months of 2026, particularly September and October, will show how far-reaching the consequences of February's decisions will be. Those Gemini who take advantage of the momentum for change in February will, by this point, feel that their careers are moving purposefully rather than chaotically. They will have income structures in place, professional connections formed, and an understanding of where they want to go in the coming years. Those who ignore their inner signals will risk finding themselves in a familiar situation again in the fall. Many tasks, few results, and fatigue from the constant information rush. But even for them, February 2026 will still be a month that marks key points that will need to be addressed later, albeit with greater energy expenditure. Family relationships throughout the year will also respond to the February turnaround. In March and April, Gemini will be more open with their relatives about needing their own space, time, attention to their affairs, and respect for their professional and personal choices. Where relatives are accustomed to controlling, advising, and criticizing, there will be restrictions on this role. Where the family is supportive, on the contrary, the bonds will strengthen. There will be joint plans, mutual assistance, and sharing of responsibilities. By the end of the year, especially in December, Gemini will no longer be in the position of the eternal child that everyone teaches. They will interact as adults, making decisions, arguing their case, and setting boundaries without conflict, but through clarity. Another important direction is the realization of creative potential. Gemini often have many ideas, but they will not always bring them to fruition. February 2026 will encourage them to turn at least some of these ideas into reality. Video channels, blogs, podcasts, author courses, books, scripts, social media projects, all of this will cease to be someday and become now. In April and May, if people of this sign implement these ideas systematically, the first results will begin to appear. Audience, feedback, and the first money from creative endeavors. By August to September, some Gemini will already have an established media presence. They will be recognized in their niches and will be sought out for their opinions, comments, and participation in collaborations. This, in turn, will open up new opportunities for monetization, partnerships, and entry into other countries and markets. Towards the end of the year, in November to December 2026, it will become clear that it is February that will shift the main focus in the lives of Gemini. Those who previously perceived themselves as people who just find it easy to communicate will see themselves in a different role. Those who will manage information flows, shape opinions, create content and structures that will help others navigate a complex reality. Those who previously spent money without a system will feel satisfaction from being able to plan, save, and invest. Those who are used to depending on the mood of those around them will realize that they can set the tone and pace themselves. And all these changes will have one central point, February 2026, when Gemini will decide to speak more clearly, choose more responsibly, work more systematically, and protect their resources as carefully as they protect the expectations of others. For Gemini, this year will not be quiet, but it will be meaningful. It will not make their lives easier, but it will make them more meaningful. In 2026, from February to December, they will see how their every word, contact, project, and educational step will shape the reality in which they want to remain, rather than escape into constant information noise. And the bolder they are in taking advantage of February's opportunities, the more reasons they will have for satisfaction and self-confidence at the end of the year. Cancer. In February 2026, a sequence of events will begin for Cancer that will completely reformat their usual model of security, intimacy, and income. If at the beginning of the year, in January, they still cling to old agreements, familiar relationships, and work patterns, then in the second month of 2026, life will force them to make tough decisions, give up the unnecessary, and open up new horizons for the future. People of this sign will enter February feeling somewhat tired of constantly being responsible for everyone around them, with the feeling that their efforts are often underappreciated and that the emotional return from their loved ones does not match the effort they put in. It is on this basis that February will begin to change the balance of priorities. Cancer will cease to agree to the role of a quiet foundation for the needs of others, and will gradually begin to build conditions where their interests, health, and professional fulfillment will not be at the bottom of the list, but at the center of their personal plan for the year. In the financial sphere, this sign will transition from inertial earnings to a conscious strategy in February 2026. If earlier, they often held on to their job simply because everyone is there, they are used to it, or it's scary to go somewhere else, then during this period, they will see the real difference between loyalty and stagnation. There will be internal clarity, what exactly they are willing to do for the money they receive, which functions have long gone beyond their job responsibilities, where they will be perceived as a convenient executor instead of a specialist. In February, Cancer will be inclined to raise issues of salary review, formal employment, transparency of bonuses, and schedule changes. Where the conversation is ignored, they will gradually begin to look for other options. The first signs will appear as early as March. Offers of side jobs, contact with former colleagues who will work on better terms, information about vacancies in other cities or companies that will need exactly the type of specialist that Cancer is: patient, attentive, responsible. In April and May, some representatives of this sign will take a step towards a better environment. They will change jobs, move to another department, or start developing their own small business related to services, care, consulting, beauty, education, psychological support, nutrition, real estate, or household services. In the summer, especially in June and July, this will yield the first tangible results. Income will become more predictable, time will become more manageable, and the feeling of constant tension for the sake of other people's plans will gradually fade. In Cancer's living space, February 2026 will launch a process of regeneration. This will not be just cleaning or rearranging furniture, but a deeper review of where and with whom they will live. In February, they will begin to see clearly how their environment affects their condition, whether their home allows them to recover or forces them to constantly adapt to noise, emotional outbursts, and other people's rules. For those Cancers who live with relatives or partners who react toxically to any attempts at autonomy, February will be the moment when they first formulate for themselves the inner right to their own space. In March to April, specific options will appear: a side job that will allow them to pay the rent, help from a friend, the opportunity to move into a separate room, change neighborhoods, or, conversely, move in with someone close who has a similar rhythm and values. By August, many representatives of this sign will feel that their apartment or house has changed. It has become quieter, brighter, more functional, free of unnecessary things associated with old pain, failures, and forced compromises. In September to October, this renewed base will feel like a real home base, rather than a place where Cancer will have to constantly be convenient for others. The emotional sphere will be one of the key vectors of transformation. Cancer, who is used to keeping insults to himself and brooding over everything for a long time, will start to distribute his energy differently from February 2026. They will begin to notice where their emotional budget is being wasted. Endless attempts to explain the obvious to those who will not listen. Attempts to pull people out of their destructive habits. Willingness to listen to other people's complaints at night without any mutual support. In February, Cancer will feel that they can no longer live in a state of constant emotional service. In March, they will set their first limits. They will stop responding to messages at any time, begin to set boundaries in conversations, and end dialogues that drag them into the past. In April, people will appear with whom deep but not exhausting intimacy is possible. Friends, colleagues, like-minded people who will listen but also share what they are going through, creating a balance of give and take. In the fall, especially in October, Cancer will see that their circle of communication has changed. Among their closest friends, there will be no one left who will live at their expense with constant drama, without making any effort to change. In the sphere of love, February 2026 will be marked by a high degree of accuracy in events. For Cancers who are in relationships, this will be a period when it will become clear where the union is based on mutual care and where it is based only on dependence, habit, or fear of loneliness. In February, there will be conversations about money, responsibilities, everyday life, and plans for the coming months and years. Cancers, who previously remained silent so as not to spoil the atmosphere, will suddenly begin to speak directly. What will not suit them, what they will perceive as neglect, what support they will need in reality, not just in words. In March, it will become clear whether the partners are mature enough to come to an agreement. If so, the relationship will enter a new phase. Financial and domestic arrangements will be clarified, and a decision will be made about a joint project, renovation, relocation, family planning, or other serious steps. If not, Cancer will gradually begin to prepare to leave this union, and in April to May, breakups are possible, after which they will begin to feel not guilt, but relief and gratitude to themselves for their honesty. Single representatives of the sign will look at the idea of partnership differently in February. Instead of fantasies about the perfect soulmate, a sober criterion will appear. A person with whom you can build a life together, share bills, responsibilities, illnesses, changes, and not just romantic evenings. In March and April, Cancer will look closely at those who know how to behave consistently, keep their promises, and be attentive to their condition. Acquaintances during this period may arise through friends, professional circles, neighbours, or participation in charitable, educational, or cultural events. In June to August, some of these contacts will develop into stable relationships, where Cancer will not hide their needs, but will openly talk about what is important to them. By the end of the year, the emotional life of many representatives of this sign will become calmer and more honest than before. Fewer illusions, more real people around. Cancer's health in 2026 will be closely linked to how they behave within their own limits. February will serve as a signal. The body will react sharply to all overexertion, chronic fatigue, and improper routines. There may be problems with sleep, digestion, back, hormonal imbalances if Cancer continues to eat, on the go, wake up and fall asleep with a smartphone, constantly saving others at the expense of their own resources. In February, they will be forced to admit that it will somehow pass. It will no longer work. March will mark the beginning of a period of examinations, consultations, and corrections. They will make appointments with doctors they have been meaning to see for a long time, finally get tested, and pay attention to their own hormonal balance, vitamin levels, and the state of their nervous system. In April to May, Cancer will gradually introduce a new routine: regular meals, more defined sleep times, limiting nighttime sticking to social media and news feeds, and physical activity that suits his body. In the summer, especially in July, they will already feel that their body is responding with a more stable mood, better endurance, and fewer sudden changes in well-being. In the fall, those Cancers who do not ignore this direction will enter the cold season not exhausted, but relatively composed. Career development in 2026 for Cancer will unfold in waves. February will be the moment when they separate two planes: what will bring money and what will give a sense of meaning. For some time, these two lines may not coincide. Real income will come from one source, and inner fulfillment from another. In March and April, Cancer will begin to look for points of intersection, how to make their love of caring, ability to listen, analyze, and build security systems manifest itself even more in their work. This may manifest itself in a transition to areas where specialists capable of creating comfort for people are needed: the hotel and restaurant business, psychological practices, social services, medicine, working with children and the elderly, high-level customer service, HR, and housing-related projects. In June and July, opportunities will arise to undergo training, internships, and try your hand at being a coordinator, mentor, or manager of a small team. In September and October, for many Cancers, the question, "Was the right choice made?" will receive practical confirmation. Their skills will be noticeable, their work style will be in demand, and their attitude towards clients or colleagues will be the reason why they will be valued and recommended. The special focus of 2026 will be money and family. Cancerians, by their very nature, will closely link financial decisions with a sense of responsibility towards their loved ones. February will bring adjustments to this pattern. People of this sign will realize that endless investments in the needs of others, if they are not balanced, destroy their opportunities for development. In February, they will begin to ask themselves which of their friends and relatives really cannot do without their support, and which ones are simply using them as a constant source of help. In March to May, Cancer will set financial boundaries. They will be less likely to lend money without understanding when and how it will be returned. They will refuse to sharply increase joint expenses if their partner is not ready to take on an equal share. In August to September, this will begin to bear fruit. Instead of perpetual holes in the budget, Cancer will have the opportunity to save, build reserves, and plan large purchases for themselves, not just for others. By December, they will feel that money is no longer a source of constant anxiety and is becoming a tool that they can manage more confidently. The year will also touch on the topic of self-realization outside of work. In February, Cancer will feel how much they miss activities that nourish the soul, not just the wallet. This could be creativity, spiritual practices, cooking, gardening, handicrafts, volunteering, or participation in community projects. In March and April, they will begin to test different formats, trying things they have long been drawn to but have constantly put off until later. In June to August, one of these activities will take on a special place. It will bring joy, help them recover, and give them a sense of purpose and meaning. Over time, this may turn into additional income or even a new line of work, but its main value in 2026 will lie elsewhere. Cancer will no longer feel that they are living only to survive, and will once again feel the taste for small earthly joys. The topic of relocation will also be important. In February 2026, the idea of changing cities, countries, or at least professional environments will arise. At first, this may seem like a theoretical possibility, but in April to June, specific options will begin to emerge. Invitations from friends, job offers in other places, educational programs that require relocation, and remote work options that will allow them to live where they feel more comfortable. In September, some Cancers will decide to take a serious step, change their permanent place of residence, or at least start traveling more often for work or study. This will not be an escape, but rather a logical continuation of all the internal changes that will begin in February. Cancer will seek an environment where their needs for security, peace, stable relationships, and the opportunity to work according to their calling will be met to the maximum extent possible. By the final weeks of 2026, it will become clear that February will shift the foundation of Cancer's existence. In January, they will look at the world through the eyes of a person who will get used to holding on to the familiar, even if it has outlived its usefulness. At the end of the year, they will enter a new phase in a different status, with their finances in order, a renewed circle of loved ones, a more harmonious space, and a job or project that provides not only income, but also real self-respect. Their emotional sphere will become less chaotic, with less unnecessary drama and more support through real actions. Importantly, Cancer will stop treating themselves as someone who is obliged to save everyone. They will shift their focus to their own life goals and will help others not out of guilt, but from a position of inner strength. All this will gradually grow out of the steps they take in February 2026, when they finally allow themselves to live not only for others, but also for themselves. Leo. For Leo, 2026 will unfold like a stage where the spotlight will gradually turn on him, and February will give the decisive impetus for this. Already in January, Leo will begin to feel that his talent, charisma, and work ethic deserve a larger scale than what he will have at that moment. He will feel confined in any framework where there is no room for leadership, creativity, or influence. In February, the inner desire for growth will cease to be silent. Leo will start to look at their status, earnings, and environment differently, and will no longer agree to roles where they are reduced to a convenient performer. This month will stimulate him to make serious decisions in work, finance, and publicity. And everything that happens from March to December will consistently reinforce the effect of the steps taken. In the professional field, February 2026 will be the start of a review of all positions for Leo. He will begin to evaluate not only the size of his salary, but also the scope of his tasks, opportunities to show initiative, and prospects for growth. If at the beginning of the year, Leo is in a position where his ideas are systematically ignored and there is no room for influence on strategy, his patience will run out in February. They will initiate discussions about new powers, a review of their responsibilities, and participation in key decisions. Where the response is vague, they will begin to prepare to leave. They will send out resumes and look for projects that need a strong figure, not a quiet shadow. For many Leos, February will be the month when they allow themselves to look at leadership positions, business partnerships, and starting their own business, not as a distant dream, but as a real step in the coming months. In March, the first concrete options will appear. Invitations to ambitious teams, participation in startups, creative agencies, production centers, media projects, and educational platforms, where strong leaders capable of setting the tone are needed. Financially, Leos will start to behave more strictly and systematically in February. They will no longer tolerate the gap between what they give and what they receive. All the "we'll fix it someday," "we'll compensate somehow," and "we'll see" will no longer satisfy them. They will initiate rate increases, bonus reviews, and clear terms and conditions, even in creative and flexible fields. If the response is negative, our Leos will direct their energy toward finding and creating sources of income where their talent will be monetized appropriately. This will begin to take effect as early as April to May. More expensive orders will appear, transitions to companies with higher compensation levels, and the first real profits from parallel projects. Author courses, public speaking, online activities, consulting, producing, and creative collaborations. In the summer, especially in July, Leo will see a noticeable increase in cash flow. But most importantly, they will feel that the money will follow their real influence, not their nameless job. In terms of recognition, February 2026 will start a very specific wave for Leos. They will stop hiding their results and agreeing to be the invisible engine. There will be a need to take the stage, figuratively or literally. This may manifest itself in a desire to give public presentations, participate in conferences, develop authorial online channels, and show the face of the project, rather than just working behind the scenes. In March, they will begin to systematically build their personal brand, creating social media pages, choosing a presentation style, learning to speak to an audience, working on their voice, appearance, and the structure of their presentation. In May to June, Leo will already have his first subscribers, viewers, and clients who will come to him specifically as a bright personality, not just to the company or brand. In September to October, it will become obvious to many representatives of this sign. Their name will begin to work independently, opening doors that previously had to be knocked on long and persistently. This transformation will also be felt in the sphere of relationships. Leo will stop agreeing to alliances in which they are devalued or taken for granted. In February, they will honestly recognize where a partnership is built on equality and where it is built on constantly feeding someone else's ego at the expense of their own. For couples who already have mutual respect and admiration for each other, February will be a time to strengthen their union. they will discuss big goals together, changing homes, moving, starting a business together, or making investments. The Leo's partner will support their move to a larger scale. They will not hold them back, but, on the contrary, will help them reach a new level of publicity and income. In March to April, such couples will feel that they are working as a team rather than pulling in different directions. If the love union is based only on habit, jealousy, or attempts to control the Leo, February will highlight this as clearly as possible. In April to May, serious conversations or even a breakup will follow, after which the representative of the sign will gradually open up space for a different format of intimacy, one where his strength and generosity will be appreciated rather than exploited. Single Leos will change their perspective on choosing a partner in February 2026. The focus will shift from superficial effects to the other person's ability to keep up with the pace of growth that Leo will be gaining. In March and April, potential acquaintances will appear through professional contacts, public events, training, creative and media activities. Leos will attract attention with their brightness, eloquence, and style. But they will select not only those who admire them, but also those who understand their ambitions and are not afraid of big plans. In the summer, especially in August, relationships are possible that will combine strong attraction and common goals. A partner who will also develop, work on themselves, and move to a new level of life. Such unions will have the potential to become a support rather than a hindrance. The theme of health in the life of a Leo in 2026 will be related to energy expenditure, which will increase sharply after February. A fast pace, publicity, new projects, constant contact. All this will require a different level of discipline for the body. If until February the Leo allows themselves irregular sleep, overeating, and chaotic workloads, then this month they will feel that their resources are not infinite. The body will signal fatigue, tension in the heart and muscles, and a disruption in the daily rhythm. In March, they will consciously begin to build a routine that corresponds to their new lifestyle. They will adjust their sleep schedule, add regular exercise, and watch their diet. For many Leos, this will be a period of giving up the habit of burning themselves out for the sake of results. In May to June, they will be able to find an activity that will keep them in shape without exhausting them. Strength training, swimming, running, dancing, or a combination of activities. In September, if Leos do not ignore the signs, they will enter the autumn season with a more resilient body and a clearer head, which will be especially important given their increased responsibilities. An important layer of change will concern creative expression. By nature, Leos will strive to create something bright, memorable, and unique. In February 2026, the inner impulse to create will become so strong that it will be impossible to suppress. People of this sign will begin to specify the format in which they want to leave their mark: video, music, texts, design, fashion, theatre, educational projects, motivational programs, and charitable initiatives that require a charismatic face. In March to April, Leos will begin to take their first steps. They will launch a channel, create a pilot course, develop a concept for their own brand, to shoot test videos, record podcasts, and organize events. In June to July, the first products will begin to receive feedback, forming a community around Leos. By October, it will become clear that creativity and self-expression will cease to be a secondary option. They will become one of the key areas of life, often associated with money and status. In the family sphere, 2026 will also not pass quietly. Leo's position towards parents, children, and relatives will change. In February, they will begin to realize that they are no longer willing to play the role of the eternal hero of the family. who always does everything but has no right to their own ambitions. In March, there will be discussions about the distribution of responsibilities, boundaries, and respect for their time and choices. For some, this period will be the moment when they stop fulfilling other people's dreams, working in a family business that does not reveal their potential, living in a city that has long ceased to inspire, being convenient for the older generation at the expense of their own prospects. In May to June, Leo will begin to implement their plans, even if their family does not immediately support them. By September, those family members who truly love them will see the results and change their tone. Instead of criticism, there will be pride. Where family ties are based on control and manipulation, contact may be reduced, which will be a healthy step. The theme of moving, traveling, and broadening horizons will also be strong. February will provoke Leo to think about other cities, countries, and markets. They will feel that their ambitions and skills need a bigger stage. In April to May, there may be job offers or projects tied to another location, invitations to conferences, training, and long trips. In July to August, some Leos will take serious steps, moving, living between two cities, working in international teams. This will expand not only their geography, but also their mindset. They will see different standards of living, different levels of income, and different models of career growth. By the end of the year, as a result of this experience, Leos will stop measuring themselves only by local standards. They will think more broadly, plan more boldly, and care about their level as an asset that will be equivalent to a pass to any space. In 2026, learning and developing competencies will not be an obligation for Leos, but a tool for strengthening their power over their own lives. In February, they will realize that charisma is not enough for stable success in a world where everything is changing rapidly. Therefore, they will look for programs, mentors, and courses that will give them not superficial motivational phrases, but practical knowledge, management, negotiation, financial literacy, marketing, working with the media, and leadership psychology. In May to June, he will implement these tools in his real work. He will build presentations differently, coordinate teams more effectively, and sell his products and services more clearly. In September, the results of the training will turn into additional leverage. Leo will be able to not only inspire, but also structurally lead projects, making them profitable and sustainable. By December 2026, the overall picture of Leo's life will have changed dramatically compared to the beginning of the year. In January, he will find himself in a situation where his inner scale and external opportunities do not match. In December, the balance will be different. Status, money, recognition, creative projects, relationships, and environment will be much more in line with his natural strength. They will have more influence, but also more responsibility, more freedom, but also a clearer understanding of what they want to achieve in the coming years. The key to this transformation will be February 2026, the month when Leos will allow themselves to claim their own scale, reject roles that underestimate them, and direct his energy where it will have the greatest impact, in money, recognition, love, and a deep sense that he is living to his full potential, not half of it. Virgo. In 2026, Virgo will gradually reach a completely different level of control over their own reality, and they will receive the key impetus for this in February. At the beginning of the year, in January, people of this sign will still cling to familiar structures, habitual work processes, proven sources of income, well-established household routines, and stable relationships. They will still be wary of sudden changes, putting off important decisions until later, and convincing themselves that they can endure the inconvenient schedule, underappreciation, and overload a little longer. However, in February 2026, according to the forecast, the situation will begin to press in from all sides, making it impossible to postpone. Virgo will feel that either she will systematically change the rules of the game or agree to gradual burnout with no prospects. And it is from this moment that her very clearly structured shift towards a more mature, secure, and balanced lifestyle will begin. In the sphere of work, February 2026 for Virgos will be associated with a reassessment of every task, every process, and every role. People of this sign will begin to analyze what they actually do every day, what results it will bring, and how it benefits them personally, not just their bosses, company, or clients. Where responsibilities have long gone beyond the job description, but pay remains at the same level, Virgos will finally stop justifying the situation. In February, they will initiate specific conversations about a raise, about the redistribution of tasks, about a change of position, about the possibility of working on terms that match their qualifications. If the employer does not respond, they will not limit themselves to being offended. They will begin to prepare the ground for a transition. She will update her portfolio, look for vacancies that pay not only for diligence, but also for competence. Consider options for partially remote work, international companies, and specialized niches where her analytical mind and pedantry will be valued much higher. In March and April, the first practical results of such actions will be expected. Virgos will receive offers of cooperation from organizations that require clarity, consistency, and the ability to keep order in numbers, documents, and processes. These may be in the fields of accounting, analytics, medicine, pharmaceuticals, IT projects, logistics, education, consulting, quality management, and administration. Representatives of the sign who are already involved in these areas will have the opportunity to move to higher positions and participate in more complex projects, where their experience will truly play a key role. In May to June, Virgos will begin to notice that their actual work will become clearer. Fewer pointless tasks, just for the sake of it. Less chaos, less improvisation at the expense of their nerves. More structured processes, clear deadlines, and transparent requirements. Financially, February 2026 will launch a new way of thinking for Virgos. People of this sign will stop perceiving money as something that simply needs to be saved and protected at all costs. They will view finances as a resource that needs to be managed. In February, Virgos will get a clear picture of their regular expenses, which ones are really necessary, and which ones are just a habit or fear of change. They will start to develop a monthly budget not in their heads, but on paper or in spreadsheets, analyzing how much will actually go towards housing, food, transportation, education, reserves, and personal development. In March and April, this approach will allow her to pay off old small debts, cancel unnecessary subscriptions, stop making emotional purchases, and stop spending money on things she doesn't understand. In May, when the first results of her new career path begin to bring in additional income, Virgo will not spend it all at once. She will distribute the surplus between her reserve fund, education, to improving her living conditions, and specific pleasures that will really improve her quality of life. In the second half of the year, especially in August to September, this will have a noticeable effect. Where previously any unforeseen situation, a breakdown of equipment, a delay in salary, urgent expenses, would throw her off track, now she will have a margin of safety that will allow her to react calmly. By November, Virgo's financial profile will look different. Stable income, structured expenses, a specific reserve, and possibly the first small investments. which they will choose not blindly, but after careful analysis of offers, consultations, and studying reviews and risks. In relationships, February 2026 will act as a quality detector. Virgo is a sign that will attach great importance to details, small gestures, and everyday behavior. In the second month of the year, she will begin to see how honestly and evenly her interactions with partners, friends, and family are being built. Where people only take advantage of her care, organization, and ability to pull through any crisis, but do not give anything in return, she will no longer turn a blind eye. In February, she will set the tone in conversations. She will clearly state what is normal for her, what is unacceptable, what she is ready for, and what she is not. In March and April, it will become clear who is capable of responding to her needs in a mature way and who will stick to the old model, where the miracle must control everything, know everything, remember everything, and save everything. In relationships where there is genuine mutual respect, 2026 will bring strengthening. In March to May, Virgo's partner will actively engage in joint tasks. Together, they will decide on financial issues, plan repairs, moves, expansion of living space, family projects, and support for older relatives. People of this sign will feel that they are finally not carrying everything on their shoulders. In July to August, such couples will be able to take steps towards even greater stability, drawing up important documents, buying a home, developing a joint business. Where relationships are based on criticism, nitpicking at Virgo's every move, and ignoring their contribution, February will be the point when they stop putting up with such treatment. In April to June, breakups are possible, which will appear sudden from the outside, but in reality will be the logical conclusion to years of inequality. Single Virgos in February 2026 will stop agreeing to casual relationships and semi-formal stories. They will clearly define what kind of relationship they want, without illusions, but with depth, without theatrical gestures, but with real actions. In March and April, most promising encounters for them will take place through their professional environment, education, and circles of people who also think about quality of life, development, and stability. In May to July, relationships may begin in which Virgos will not adapt, but will maintain their own habits, rhythms, and requirements for order and honesty. By the end of the year, these unions will have a chance to become a format where they will no longer feel like a service, but will feel like equal partners. Virgo's health in 2026 will be directly related to their ability to structure their workload. In January, the body will already be sending signals: accumulated fatigue, tension in the back and neck, periodic digestive problems, headaches after difficult working days. In February, it will become clear that it is dangerous to ignore this any longer. People of this sign will begin to put not only work tasks in their calendars, but also rest, medical examinations, and dietary adjustments. They will schedule long-delayed visits to doctors, consult with specialists, and begin to do basic tests. In March and April, they will gradually introduce systematic habits: regular meals at the same time, a clear sleep schedule, avoiding night work where possible, and relieving the nervous system through simple rituals such as walks, exercises, and breathing practices. In May to June, these changes will yield tangible results. Energy levels will even out. Sudden slumps in energy will disappear. It will become easier to concentrate, and the need for stimulants in the form of constant coffee or sweets will decrease. In August to September, if Virgos do not return to their old work above all else style, their physical condition will allow them to take on large-scale projects without the risk of breaking down. If she ignores the warning signs in February and continues to work to the last, there could be serious consequences in the fall. Exacerbation of chronic conditions, emotional burnout, temporary loss of working capacity, after which she will still have to rebuild her lifestyle. Therefore, the key recommendation for Virgos this year is to treat their body as their main working tool, rather than as an accessory to their professional activities. Virgos' everyday life and living space will also change radically in 2026. February will be the starting point for a profound reorganization. People of this sign will approach their home as a project. They will analyze what in their apartment or house will support them and what will drain them. In February, they will begin to get rid of the unnecessary, useless things, old documents, items kept just in case, that only create visual and energetic noise. In March to April, they will organize their space, storage systems, optimization of the kitchen, workplace, and bedroom so that each area fulfills its function. In May, they may start renovations, minor remodeling, or updating furniture or appliances, which they have long lacked the determination to do. In the summer, especially in July, many representatives of this sign will feel that their home is starting to work for them. It will be easier to clean, cook, relax, and work from home if necessary. In September to October, some Virgos will consider changing their living situation, moving to another area, city, or country, renting a better option, or buying their own property. These decisions will not be impulsive. They will be the result of all the financial and professional work that Virgos will have been doing since February. By the end of the year, the space in which she lives will look much more orderly, functional, and in line with her character and plans. A special focus for 2026 will be learning and professional development. Virgos will always know and be able to do a lot, but in February, they will clearly feel that the world is moving faster than their usual professional algorithms. At this time, she will start looking for courses and programs that are not empty theory, but provide specific tools, new digital skills, modern methods of analytics, project management, process automation, and language training to enter other markets. In April to June, she will already be in the process of learning, combining her main job with regular classes, homework, and practice. In August to September, the results will begin to be integrated into her activities. She will take on new tasks that require this knowledge, will be able to apply for more complex and expensive projects, and will apply new methods where she previously worked according to old patterns. On the family front, February 2026 will raise the question of the balance between helping loved ones and her own life. Virgo will get used to being the one who remembers everything: dates, payments, references, visits, and relatives' problems. In the second month of the year, she will feel that her resources are not endless, and that her loved ones will often shift onto her what they can do themselves. In March, she will begin to adjust the format of interaction. She will delegate some of her responsibilities, remind others of their areas of responsibility, and refuse to play the role of family secretary. For some, 2026 will be associated with supporting older family members, treatment, paperwork, moving. And even in this context, Diva will look for ways not to get lost in other people's needs. She will involve other relatives, negotiate with specialists, and distribute the workload so as not to burn out. By November, it will become clear that Diva will no longer serve everyone at once, but will act as a coordinator who takes on what she can realistically handle without harming herself. The end of 2026, November and December, will bring Diva a very clear understanding that February was a turning point for her. In January, she will enter the year with the feeling that everything is generally holding together, but on the verge of strength, nerves, time. In December, the picture will be different. Work will be more interesting and important. Finances will be predictable and controllable. Life will be organized. Relationships will be more honest. The circle of communication will be cleaner, and the body will be in a more manageable state rather than in a state of constant anxiety. By the end of the year, Virgo will see herself as someone who doesn't just neatly perform tasks, but manages her own life system, planning, analyzing, adjusting, responding in a timely manner, and not pushing herself into a corner. And all this will come together from the specific decisions she will make in February 2026, when she will finally allow herself not only to be responsible for everyone, but also to build a reality that is comfortable for herself. Libra. In the life of Libras, 2026 will unfold as a series of important choices, and it is February that will start the process when every yes and every no will form a new configuration of reality. Back in January, representatives of this sign will waver between different job options, relationship formats, plans to move or study, but will avoid making final decisions, postponing them until a better moment. In the second month of the year, this tactic will cease to work. Circumstances, people, and events will push Libras to clearly formulate their position. They will be forced to decide who they will go with and where they will go next, what they are ready to support and what they will give up, what standard of living they will consider normal for themselves, and how they approach this period will determine their status, financial stability, and personal happiness at the end of the year. In the professional sphere, at the beginning of the year, Libras will still stick to the familiar model. They will try not to conflict, adapt to leadership, and take on the role of a mediator in the team, smoothing things over and resolving other people's disputes. But by February, it will become clear that this strategy will cease to be beneficial. Management or partners will demand more involvement, concrete results, and a willingness to take responsibility for decisions. Libras will be forced to declare their real competencies, not just their ability to get along with everyone. At this time, they will begin to formulate more clearly what projects they want to lead, what conditions they agree to, and how much they should receive for their work. In March, they will no longer agree to take a back seat if they have the experience that allows them to claim the position of coordinator, manager, strategic specialist, or consultant. Further, in April and May, the first results of this internal turnaround will become apparent. Some Libras will change their employment format. Some will move from a traditional office to a hybrid or fully remote model, while others will look for work in international companies where their negotiation skills, ability to build partnerships, and work with clients will be valued. Those involved in law, HR, sales, marketing, PR, consulting, design, media projects, and creative team management will be successful. In the summer, especially in June and July, representatives of this sign will feel that their role at work is becoming more strategic. They will be involved in decision-making, advising, and discussing future business development directions rather than just technical tasks. The financial line of the year will also be tied to how Libras behave in February. In January, they can still behave quite relaxed. They will allow themselves spontaneous expenses, purchases of beautiful things for mood, spending on entertainment and impressions, without thinking too much about the structural side of the budget. However, in the second month of the year, circumstances will arise that will reveal weaknesses in their financial system. This could be an unexpected large payment, the need to help relatives, a delay in income, or simply the feeling that they are too dependent on one source of income. The response to this will be the decision to develop a well-thought-out financial plan. Libras will begin to record their income and expenses, determine mandatory payments, and distinguish real needs from impulsive desires. In March, they will already be more careful about their purchases, and in April and May, they will take the first steps toward creating a reserve. In the second half of the year, especially in August and September, this approach will make a noticeable difference. Where previously any major expense would have caused stress, now they will have a reserve that will allow them not to panic. By autumn, there will be a chance to earn additional income. Freelance projects, consulting, participation in partnership schemes, small investments. Libras will carefully study the opportunities. They will not take blind risks, but will analyze the conditions and consult with those who have experience. By December, they will already have a much more orderly financial reality, several sources of income, an understanding of their own price in the labor market, and a basic financial cushion that will allow them to plan for the next year with greater peace of mind. In the sphere of personal relationships, the key task for Libras in 2026 will be to strike a balance between being comfortable and being honest with themselves. In February, they will suddenly realize where they are sacrificing their boundaries for the comfort of others. For some, this will be a story of how they constantly adapt to their partner's routine, take on more household responsibilities, silently swallow offensive remarks, and avoid difficult topics. For others, it will be about friendships in which their role will be reduced to that of an eternal listener and advisor without mutual support. In March, this realization will turn into concrete actions. Libras will start to speak openly, not only asking, "How are you?" but also stating, "I need respect, time, attention, and partnership." In couples with the potential for mature interaction, important conversations about their future together will begin. In April and May, this may result in decisions about shared housing, changes in lifestyle, plans for children, and the redistribution of financial responsibility. Where partners are willing to consider each other's needs, relationships will reach a new level of stability. If manipulation, silent resentment, and unwillingness to take on some of the responsibilities dominate the relationship, the period from March to July may bring breakups or a radical change in the format. Libras will no longer agree to half relationships in which another person decides everything for them. Single representatives of the sign will also change their selection criteria after February. Instead of superficial attractiveness, status, or vivid emotions, the question of compatibility in values will come to the fore. In March and April, they will look for those who can speak directly and are not afraid to discuss money, plans, and responsibility. Acquaintances during this period will often be related to work, study, joint projects, or travel. In June and August, relationships may develop that combine romance and partnership. People with whom you can not only spend time, but also grow, create joint initiatives, and support each other in career changes. By the end of the year, some Libras who started 2026 alone will be in mature relationships where they won't have to pretend to be more comfortable than they are. Libra's health this year will be closely linked to their stress levels and their ability to end awkward negotiations, conflicts, and uncertain situations in a timely manner. In January and February, they may experience physical tension, sleep problems, fluctuations in blood pressure, and emotional exhaustion, especially if they try to keep the peace at all costs for a long time. In March, they will realize that it is their unspoken feelings and postponed decisions that take the most energy away from them. In response, they will resolve to set clearer boundaries, to end exhausting conversations, to refrain from getting involved in other people's conflicts, if their presence there will not change anything, and to reduce the influence of toxic people on their daily lives. In April and May, Libras will begin to cautiously but consistently implement a new system of self-care. They will pay attention to the quality of their rest, regulate their sleep patterns, limit their nighttime races on social media. Try to get out into the fresh air more often, move around, and add light physical activity. They will realize that it is impossible to maintain balance without movement. In the summer, especially in July, those Libras who take these signals seriously will feel noticeable relief. Their minds will work more clearly, their emotional swings will become less severe, and their bodies will respond with gratitude. In 2026, the home space will play a stabilizing role for Libras. In February, they will look at their home with different eyes. Does it support a state of calm? Or does it resemble a repository of unfinished stories and chaotic emotions? In March, the cleansing will begin. It will involve both things and energy. Libras will get rid of everything associated with periods of tension, difficult relationships, and unsuccessful projects. They will get rid of unnecessary items that do not help but create noise. In April and May, they will put their energy into making their home meet their new standards. More light, order, well thought out areas for rest and work, details that will remind them of their real goals, not their grey, everyday life. In the summer, moving may be on the agenda. Some Libras will decide to change their neighborhood, city, or even country if their work, relationships, and inner state push them to do so. June, July, and September will be particularly active in terms of decisions about changing living conditions. Some will move in with a partner, some will move to a more spacious home, and some will move closer to the center of events, where it is easier to develop their career and social connections. By November, almost all Libras who take advantage of this year's opportunities will have a different standard of living, personal space, or at least a more comfortable environment where they will not feel constant tension. Another important vector is learning and developing professional flexibility. February's events will show Libras that it is risky to remain within the confines of their old competencies. The world will need specialists who can negotiate, think systematically, see several moves ahead, and work with people of different cultures and temperaments. In March and April, Libras will begin to look for opportunities to strengthen themselves. Courses in communication, management, coaching, conflict management, marketing, and digital tools. In May to August, they will already be in the process of learning. In parallel with their main work, they will master new approaches and learn to work confidently with the public, online platforms, and project management systems. In September and October, this additional education will begin to translate into real opportunities. Libras will be able to apply for management or coordination roles, conduct their own consultations, courses, and trainings, and help others resolve issues in which they themselves already have experience. Some representatives of the sign will have the idea of creating a joint business or partnership project with friends or colleagues, where they will be responsible for agreements, structure, and product presentation. By the end of the year, this line will be one of the most important. Without new knowledge and skills, Libras would not feel as confident as they will in December. Family relationships in 2026 will also go through a period of review. In February, Libras will realize that their peace-loving nature has often made them the first candidates for the role of reconciling everyone, listening to everyone, and understanding everyone. They will feel that sometimes this goes beyond what is healthy. In March, they will begin to separate the real need for their participation from the dramas they are drawn into simply out of habit. In April and May, difficult conversations with parents, siblings, and adult children are possible. Libras will announce that they are not ready to take on all the organizational and emotional tasks. This does not mean that they will become indifferent. Rather, they will seek to preserve their own integrity. As a result, closer to October-November, the format of family relationships will be different. Where relatives are able to accept Libra's new position, a more mature contacts will be established, without undue pressure, with mutual respect, and with a division of responsibilities. Where loved ones do not want to change anything, there may be a temporary distance, which, however, will allow the sign to preserve itself. And already in December, Libras will see that they no longer live in a mode where any family conflict automatically becomes their problem. They will know where their area of responsibility lies and where it does not. At the end of 2026, Libras will look back and see a clear difference between themselves before February and themselves after. In January, they will still doubt what they can count on, whether they have the right to demand better conditions, and whether it is worth defending their desires. In December, the picture will be different. Work will be more interesting, income will be structured, private life will be more honest, relationships will be more equal, housing will be more comfortable, and social circles will be cleaner. They will feel that they have learned to make choices without fear of losing someone else's affection. And they will carry this inner strength with them into the coming years as the most important outcome of what February and the whole of 2026 will bring them. Scorpio. Scorpio will greet February 2026 with a feeling of inner overload and a clear need to radically change something in their life. But this month will not allow them to leave everything as is. If in January they still cling to their usual patterns of control over money, relationships, work, their own emotions, then in February, events will begin to shift them from the position of observer to that of someone who makes tough and fateful decisions. Everything that was previously hidden in the shadows, unresolved financial issues, complex family agreements, tension in the couple, controversial issues regarding property, responsibility, and power, will come to the fore. For Scorpios, this will not be a disaster. On the contrary, 2026 will give them a chance to take control of the levers that have long been distributed among other people, circumstances, and chance. It is worth starting with money. In February 2026, Scorpios will be paying close attention not only to their own salaries or side jobs, but also to all shared resources, the family budget, loans, debts, joint expenses with their partner, investments, and financial obligations to their family. Where someone else uses their resources without taking real responsibility, tension will reach its peak. During this period, they will begin to propose a new order: transparent accounting of expenses, clear agreements, written commitments, and a distinction between mine and ours. In March, this will translate into concrete steps: reviewing loans, restructuring debts, talking to banks, employers, and partners about changing conditions. For some representatives of this sign, this month will provide a powerful impetus to get out of chronic financial debt. Scorpios will pay off old obligations more aggressively, seek more favorable terms, and refuse unnecessary obligations that keep them on a short leash. In April and May, these decisions will open up new opportunities. Where previously a significant portion of money went to servicing past mistakes, space will begin to free up for savings, investments, and development. Scorpios will study more complex financial instruments, long-term deposits, joint investment projects, and business partnerships. They will not rush into risks blindly, but they will stop being afraid of large sums and responsibility. In June to July, the first results of this change will become noticeable. Their income will not only be more stable, but also more deeply connected with the influence they will have in their professional field. The more authority they have, the more serious the financial flows will be. In the workplace, February 2026 will be the moment when Scorpios stop putting up with being irreplaceable but invisible. Their strengths, the ability to work in a crisis, see people's hidden motives, analyze risks, and withstand high levels of stress where others would give up, will be too valuable to remain in secondary roles. In the second month of the year, they will begin to clearly articulate what they want to change in their work. More authority, access to classified information, participation in critical decisions, and a different level of pay for the dirty work they have been doing for years. In March to April, this may result in either a promotion or a transfer to another structure where people are needed who are capable of working with risks, security, finances, conflict situations, and difficult clients. For many Scorpios, areas requiring depth and endurance will become relevant. Law enforcement and regulatory agencies, medicine, especially complex areas, psychotherapy, security, auditing, crisis management, financial analysis, corporate governance, complex negotiations, high stakes and highly competitive industries. In May and June, they will already feel that their word will carry more weight. Colleagues and management will take their risk assessment into account, and clients will trust them even in the most tense situations. In August, some representatives of this sign may find themselves in a situation where their position will be key to the success of a project or company, and this will come with a new level of influence and income. In the sphere of relationships, 2026 will reveal to Scorpios a truth that they have long felt but have not always dared to accept. In January, difficult moments in the couple will still be swept under the rug. Jealousy, suspicions, insults, old grievances, topics that are supposedly not the time to bring up. But in February, silence will no longer work. Scorpios will ask direct questions. Who in the couple is really ready to commit? Who is ready to share responsibility? And who is just taking advantage of their devotion? They will not tolerate half measures. Either the union will become honest, strong, with clear agreements on money, everyday life, personal freedom, and fidelity, or they will have to abandon the broken structure. In March to April, strong couples where both partners are mature in their approach will begin a profound reformatting. They will agree on common long-term goals, discuss how to distribute roles so that no one burns out from overload, and how to support each other not only in words, but also in real actions. They will plan big steps: a mortgage, starting a business, joint investments, starting or expanding a family. Where the partnership was based on manipulation, emotional dependence, and control without trust, very sharp conversations and breakups are possible from April to July. Scorpios will not waste 2026 on people who play hidden games with them. For single representatives of the sign, February 2026 will be a period when they will shift their attention from toxic passion to deep but mature intimacy. They will no longer seek adrenaline at any cost. Love triangles, hidden relationships, dramas that previously fueled emotions but destroyed the nervous system. In March to May, Scorpios will choose those who can withstand their true intensity, honest directness, high demands for loyalty, and rejection of superficiality. Encounters during this period will often have the context of shared difficult situations, work crises, legal issues, medical histories, volunteer projects, where people go through stressful experiences together. In July to August, such contacts may give rise to relationships that may not have frivolous sugar romance, but will have what Scorpios value above all else: the feeling that they will not be betrayed in the worst moment. The topic of health deserves special attention. For Scorpios, 2026 will be a revealing year. The body will react directly to how they treat themselves. In February, the body will begin to show where the limits of endurance have already been exceeded. The nervous system is exhausted. The hormonal background needs attention. Accumulated tension in the muscles and joints interferes with movement, and disruptions in sleep and nutrition make themselves felt. People of this sign will be forced to admit that they can no longer ignore the signals. In March, Scorpios will be busy with medical examinations. They will take tests, check the organs and systems that have been working at the limit for years, and consult specialists they have been putting off for a long time. April and May will be a period of adjusting to a new routine. Scorpios, who are used to working themselves to exhaustion, will begin to plan their workload and rest more disciplined. They will take into account that psychological stress in their work or personal life will require compensatory practices, not chaotic breakdowns in the form of alcohol, nighttime burnouts on social media, or spontaneous overeating, but regular conscious ways of recovery, physical activity, deep sleep, therapeutic methods, working with the body, and sometimes a change of environment. In June to July, they will already feel the difference. Their endurance will increase, mood swings will become less severe, and their willpower, which they already possess, will be based not on a malicious, must-endure attitude, but on a truly supported resource. In 2026, home will cease to be just a place for Scorpios to hide from the world. It will become their personal command center for their lives. In February, Scorpios will assess how well their home meets the challenges they will face in their new financial, professional, and personal reality. Where an apartment or house is overflowing with memories of conflicts, failed relationships, and failed stages, they will feel the need to change not only things, but also the atmosphere. In March to April, a deep cleansing will begin. They will remove unnecessary items, documents, gifts that have long lost their meaning, papers, and things that remind them of obligations that no longer exist. In May and June, there will be a desire to make the space more functional and secure. For some, this will mean renovations, replacing locks, investing in security, and for others, it will mean deciding to move to a different location closer to key resources, work, partners, and the necessary infrastructure. In August to September, many Scorpios will already be living differently, either in a renovated home where everything is in its place, or in a new home that will not drag them down with memories, but will keep them moving forward. In October to November, they will especially feel that their home has become not a battlefield and a source of stress, but a place where they can quickly recover from any battles in the outside world. Another key theme of the year is power and influence. In 2026, Scorpios will not be satisfied with formal positions without real decision-making power. In February, they will clearly see where they will be kept in the role of an executor, forced to follow someone else's strategies, and where they will be entrusted with key powers. In March, they will make a choice, either to stay where they are being used without access to the center of control, or to move to where their experience, toughness, and intuition are valued so much that they will be given real tools of influence. In April to June, the theme of leadership will intensify. Some Scorpios will have the opportunity to head a department, team, division, or project where they will have to make unpopular decisions, overcome resistance, discipline processes, and cleanse structures of toxic elements, outdated schemes, and double standards. In August to September, their role as a cleaner may become decisive. Thanks to their toughness and ability to see the root of the problem, they will help the company, team, or business get through crises and avoid financial and reputational disasters. And it is for this that in 2026 he will begin to be truly appreciated, not for his convenience, but for his ability to save where others give up. In the family sphere, the year will not be easy either. Scorpio will not agree to play the role of a dumpster where everyone dumps their fears, guilt, and problems, expecting him to take it all and still be guilty. In February, he will indicate which issues he is ready to take on and which he is not. Family conflicts, old grudges, and hereditary dramas that have been passed down for decades will cease to be their automatic area of responsibility. In March to April, they will begin to bring frank conversations to a concrete level. Who does what? Who is responsible for what? And who takes on what part of the family obligations? May to July may see some tense episodes. Not all relatives will happily accept the fact that Scorpio will no longer be the silent bearer of all family responsibilities. But by autumn, especially in October, in most cases, the situation will change for the better. Those who are used to hiding behind his back will either learn to act independently or will take a back seat, offended, but no longer controlling his life. Ultimately, by December, Scorpio will have formed a family relationship format in which they will not lose their dignity and strength. As for self-realization outside of work, 2026 will open up a whole new dimension for Scorpios. In February, they will feel that it is not enough to simply have money and status. They need something deeper, something for which they are willing to invest themselves beyond the norm. This could be psychology, volunteering, or participation in complex social projects that involve working with trauma, crises, and recovery. In March and April, they will explore formats where their experience of difficult periods in their own life will become a resource for others. In May to August, this activity will begin to take shape. Perhaps they will provide counseling, help people get out of financial or personal dead ends, and get involved in charitable initiatives in difficult areas where most people are afraid to work. Illness, addiction, the consequences of war, violence, and deep psychological trauma. This is where his natural ability to look into dark areas without hysteria will become extremely valuable. By the end of the year, this line may form a separate direction in the Scorpio's life. Not always about money, but always about the feeling that his strength is not being wasted. When 2026 comes to an end, in November and December, Scorpios will see a completely different picture than at the beginning of the year. In January, they will live with the feeling that they control too much, but cannot change everything. Loans, complex alliances, difficult family issues, work obligations that weigh heavily but do not pay off. In December, everything will look different. Financial issues will either be resolved or transformed into a form where they will work for them, not against them. Work will bring a different level of influence and pay, and the circle of people they deal with will become smaller but much higher quality. Those who are not afraid of his depth and directness will remain in his relationships. A new balance will be established in the family. Despite all the stress of the year, his body will be in better shape than it was before February, if the Scorpio listens to the signals and does not return to self-destruction. And most importantly, they will not just be a player who reacts to others' moves, but one who shapes the field, the rules, and the final result. February 2026 will be the point from which Scorpios begin to build their lives not through struggle with chaos, but through precise and conscious management of their own strength, resources, connections, and time. Sagittarius. A person born under the sign of Sagittarius will suddenly feel in February 2026 that the horizon of their life will begin to expand, not theoretically, but in practice. If in January they still stick to their usual circumstances, stable but limiting work, half-dead relationships, postponed plans to move, study, or start their own project. Then the second month of the year will trigger a series of decisions that will take Sagittarius from a whatever will be attitude to a mode of he will create opportunities for himself. In February 2026, Sagittarius will be forced to take an unvarnished look at his professional path. Where he has long accepted the role of a good employee who gets everything done, takes on more than his share, but does not receive the corresponding level of freedom, influence, and income, the tension will reach its limit. Sagittarius will begin to ask themselves direct questions. Are they ready to spend another year expending energy on tasks that do not bring them closer to their own goals? Is it worth continuing to support a system that will use their ideas, charisma, and communication skills, but does not give them a say where key decisions are made? This month, they will either insist on changing conditions, expanding their powers, raising their pay, switching to a different format of cooperation, or begin to prepare to leave the current structure. In March, Sagittarius will intensify the search for a space where his natural desire for scale, development, and freedom will not be a problem, but will become his main asset. They will respond to offers related to international companies, projects with the possibility of travel, participation in conferences, training programs, and creative teams where strategic thinking and the ability to look beyond the scope of job descriptions are valued. For many representatives of this sign, areas related to education, marketing, media, IT, consulting, production, tourism, coaching, public speaking, and working with online audiences will be relevant. In April, Sagittarius will no longer be in a state of uncertainty. Either their status at their current job will change, they will be involved in strategy development, entrusted with key areas, and given ambitious tasks with corresponding pay, or they will embark on a new trajectory, a different company, a different format, sometimes even a different country. In May, he will feel that the workload has not decreased, but the feeling of a meaningless treadmill will disappear. Every project, every deal, every presentation will begin to work for his name, reputation, and portfolio. And by June, it will be clear that Sagittarius's career will no longer be limited to one office or local market. The financial line of the year will also start in February, but the nature of the changes will be different, not only in terms of earnings, but also in terms of attitude to risk. In 2026, Sagittarius will cease to be afraid of large sums of money, but will not squander them either. In the second month of the year, they will realize that their money too often dissolves in spontaneous expenses, momentary pleasures, unnecessary subscriptions, impulsive purchases, trips that do not give any long-term return. They will start counting, not to save on every little thing, but to understand how to achieve financial freedom. In March, Sagittarius will draw up a map of goals for themselves, how much they want to have in reserve, what they are willing to invest in: education, business development, technology, advertising, trips that expand professional connections, and not just allow them to reboot. In April-May, they will take the first concrete steps. Open a separate account for reserves, start setting aside part of their income not as it comes, but systematically, and invest purposefully in tools that will make their work more scalable. A high-quality laptop, camera, studio space, courses, software. By July, the financial picture will change. Instead of a feeling of constant lack of money, there will be a feeling of a controlled flow, where Sagittarius clearly knows where the income comes from and what it is spent on. In August, another line will appear: the expansion of income sources. Sagittarius will begin to think about how to monetize what he already does well. The ability to explain complex things simply, motivate people, create content, lead groups, organize events, and promote products that are close to his heart. In the fall, parallel projects may appear: online courses, channels, consulting, participation in affiliate programs, and author formats that bring in money regardless of their main job. By December, this sign will no longer feel that their financial fate is completely tied to one employer or one city. The emotional and personal plane in 2026 will open up for Sagittarius from a different angle. In January, they may still cling to relationships or forms of communication that have long ceased to bring joy but seem right from the point of view of their environment or old promises. In February, honesty with oneself will come to the fore. Sagittarius will clearly feel where their partner is, who will truly support, inspire, and rejoice in their growth, and where there is a person who will pull them towards stability at any cost, stifling their need for development, travel, and professional experiments. In March, the following issues will become more acute in the couple: whose schedule is a priority, who is willing to adapt, how money will be distributed, who will take on the risk if Sagittarius decides to change jobs, start a business, or move. Where the partnership is mature, the conversation will lead to new agreements. One of the two will temporarily take on most of the household responsibilities to give Sagittarius the opportunity to reach a new level. One will agree to move. One will join their projects as a partner or co-founder. In such couples, the relationship will become stronger from April to June. Common goals and risks will not scare them, but unite them. If the union is based on habit, dependence, or fear of loneliness, February to May will bring tension and sometimes a breakup. Sagittarius will not want to live 2026 in a format where they are constantly reproached for their unsuitable schedule, ambitions, and desire to move forward. They will be ready to endure a period without relationships, just so as not to clip their wings for the sake of apparent stability. Single Sagittarians will also change their perspective this year. After February, they will stop looking only for exciting stories with a lot of fire and little support. In March to April, something else will become important. Whether a person is ready to go the distance with them, to share career changes, relocations, study trips, and an unconventional schedule. They will meet people at work, at training sessions, on trips, while participating in international projects, and in online communities based on shared interests. In July to August, it is possible to start a relationship in which freedom and closeness will not contradict each other. Where there is trust, there will be no need to control every step, but instead, you will encourage each other to grow. Sagittarius's health in 2026 will largely depend on how they manage their energy. In January, the body will already give clues: periodic sleep problems, overexertion, unstable appetite, pressure drops, or exhaustion after intense periods of work. In February, it will become clear that resources are not unlimited. It will no longer be possible to live constantly on adrenaline, coffee, and spontaneous breaks. Sagittarius will be forced to stop and see how their body actually functions. In March, they will no longer put off basic examinations, checking their cardiovascular system, tests, consultations with specialists they have been planning to visit for years. In April to May, they will gradually begin to introduce a regime that corresponds to their natural dynamics, not strict prohibitions, but reasonable rules. This will involve regular sleep, a more stable diet, and physical activity that combines freedom and structure: running, cycling, trekking, team games, dancing, anything that involves movement, space, and interest. By July, Sagittarius will feel their endurance increasing and their emotional lows becoming less severe. In September to October, when the workload increases again due to new projects, trips, and decisions, it will be important not to return to the old pattern of working to the limit and then resting. If they continue to take care of their body as systematically as they do new opportunities, the year will end without any serious setbacks. If the signals of February are ignored, severe fatigue is possible in the fall, which will roll back some of the achievements. In 2026, home will not just be a place for Sagittarius to sleep between trips and work. It will become a base from which he will launch all his changes. In February, they will begin to notice that their current home will either support or slow them down. If their apartment or house is cramped, dark, and filled with chaotic things associated with past stages and failed attempts, they will want to reformat everything. In March to April, he will begin to clear the space, removing the unnecessary, getting rid of old symbols of failure, transforming the home into a place associated with the future rather than stagnation. In May to June, decisions about moving are possible, closer to work, to another area, to a city with more opportunities, or conversely, to a quieter place if the main priority is to recover between intense periods. In July to August, some Sagittarians will already be living in a new home or a significantly renovated space where it will be easier to work, record content, receive guests, and relax. This will be especially noticeable in October. Home will cease to be a temporary base and will become a place where it is pleasant to return. Another important theme is learning and broadening one's horizons. Sagittarius will not be able to get through 2026 without updating their knowledge. In February, they will realize that the next leap forward requires not so much new acquaintances as a new level of competence. In March to April, they will look for programs, masterclasses, and long-term courses that will give them not just motivation, but tools in the areas of sales, marketing, content production, team management, personal brand development, foreign languages, and digital technologies. In May, they will already be in the process of learning, combining work and new knowledge. In June to August, the first practical results will appear. New service formats that they can offer, new types of clients, access to international markets if they work online. In September to October, many Sagittarians will realize that they can no longer call themselves simply specialists. They will become experts in their niches, who are turned to as a source of solutions, not just as executors. Family relationships will also change in 2026. Sagittarius will no longer accept the role of someone who is always on the road, and therefore supposedly has less influence in the family. In February, they will make it clear that their choice of place of residence, work format, and travel is not a whim, but part of their path. In March to April, difficult conversations with parents and older relatives who are used to seeing them in a more predictable role are possible. Sagittarius will not be rude, but they will not allow themselves to be pressured into feeling guilty. In May to June, he will manage to find a new format. He will plan meetings, help, and participation in family affairs so that it does not disrupt his own schedule. In July to August, family events are possible. Holidays, trips, large gatherings, where Sagittarius will feel that they are no longer perceived as an eternal traveler without seriousness, but as a person who is building their own path and at the same time does not forget about their family. By November, the balance between personal life, work, and family responsibilities will become more natural, without the constant feeling that someone is being left out. At the end of 2026, Sagittarius will look back and see that February was a starting point of a different scale for them. In January, they will still be in a reality where dreams of freedom, a different level of money, moving, and their own projects will be perceived more as ideas for later. In December, the picture will change. Real steps will be taken. A change of job or conditions, the start of new sources of income, sometimes a new city, the launch of original formats, a different level of relationship with a partner, a renewed space, and concrete learning outcomes. Sagittarius will end the year with the feeling that they are not waiting for fate to throw them a chance. They will create situations that will reveal their potential. And the key moment will remain February 2026, the month when they will allow themselves not to adapt to other people's frameworks, but to build a trajectory where their love of freedom, development, movement, and risk will work not against them, but for them. Capricorn. For Capricorn, 2026 will be a year of major regrouping, and February will be the month when internal decisions translate into external actions. At the start of the year, in January, representatives of this sign will still cling to familiar structures, stable but limiting positions, established financial obligations, clearly defined routines, and the usual regime of saving time and money. In February, the situation will begin to change. Capricorn will look at their life not from the position of how to keep what they have, but from the position of what foundation should be laid so that the coming years work for them, not against them. It is then that they will allow themselves to review contracts, rules, agreements, daily schedules, and even geography. In the professional field, February 2026 will have a clear function for Capricorn to show where their competencies have already outgrown the scope of their current position. They will begin to analyze not only the level of pay, but also the weight of decisions made, the scope of responsibility, and the impact on strategic processes. Where they are used as a quiet workhorse who solves complex problems but has no say, tension will build up. This month, Capricorns will initiate conversations about promotions, expanding their powers, changing contracts, and participating in planning. If the response from management is vague or evasive, in March, they will be ready to direct their energy toward other structures, where people who know how to maintain a vertical chain of responsibility are needed. Financial organizations, manufacturing companies, development projects, logistics systems, management and consulting teams. In April, Capricorn will find themselves in a situation where they have several realistic options on the table. Stay, but under new conditions, or move to another company, industry, or city. They will not rush, but they will not drag it out indefinitely either. They will calculate the risks, compare packages, analyze growth prospects, the owner's structure, and the reputation of future colleagues. In May, a decision will be made that will change the trajectory for several years to come. For some, this will mean a transition to top or middle management with direct influence on budgets and strategy. For others, starting their own business, where their accumulated experience will allow them to start not from scratch, but with a ready-made base of connections and knowledge. In June and July, the professional storyline will gain momentum. Capricorns will gradually take on more difficult projects, working with long cycles, large sums, and complex negotiations. They will organize processes, build control systems, optimize costs, cut unnecessary links, and take the business or department to another level of efficiency. This will require a high level of concentration, but this is how they will form a new status for themselves. Not just a responsible employee, but a person without whom key decisions will not be made. In September, this status will be documented. New contracts, bonus schemes, options, shares in projects, long-term agreements that will give him a sense of real support. In 2026, the material plane will be no less important for Capricorn than the career plane. February will be a month of inventory. Representatives of this sign will check everything: income, expenses, loans, insurance programs, tax obligations, joint family budgets, savings, and property that has not been used for a long time. They will soberly assess where money is simply disappearing and where it can be directed into assets that will yield a return. January habits of buying just in case or keeping money in an account without a clear purpose will begin to disappear. In March, Capricorns will draw up a financial plan for the year: how much they are willing to spend on basic needs, how much on development, and how much on reserves and investments. In April, they will begin to act in accordance with this plan. This may mean early closure of expensive loans, refinancing on more favorable terms, redistribution of funds between accounts, and the launch of their first structured investment portfolio: deposits, reliable instruments with predictable income, and possibly partial participation in joint business projects. In May to June, financial discipline will become a habit. Capricorn will keep track of their expenses without giving in to impulsive spending, and will gradually notice that the amount they can save and multiply will grow. In July and August, they will begin to look at property more broadly. The issue of real estate, personal, family, investment, will become particularly relevant. Capricorns will consider options for buying an apartment, house, land plot, commercial premises, or participating in construction projects. They will not be swayed by pretty pictures, but will study documents, the reputation of developers, and the details of contracts. In September to October, a significant number of Capricorns will have already signed important agreements that will secure their financial base for many years to come. In November, this will bring not only a sense of stability, but also inner pride in the fact that in 2026, they turned money from a constant source of stress into a tool for realizing long-term plans. In the sphere of personal relationships, February will set the tone for Capricorn. This sign enters 2026 with high demands on itself, and often with uncritical patience towards others. In the second month of the year, the balance will begin to shift. Capricorn will look closely at who is really keeping pace with them and who is just taking advantage of their resources: money, time, contacts, emotional endurance. In couples where relationships are already established, February will bring serious conversations about money, everyday life, common goals, division of responsibilities, and support during periods of tension. They will not pressure their partners, but will clearly indicate what is normal for them and what is not. In March and April, Capricorn's partners will have the opportunity to show how ready they are for a real partnership, and not just for the comfort that this sign will create for everyone. Where there is a desire to negotiate, new rules will be written. A joint budget, responsibility for large purchases, decisions about housing, work, parental responsibilities, and support for older family members. In May to June, such couples will reach a new level of trust. They will act as a team, where everyone understands what part of the burden falls on them and what part falls on their partner. If there have been imbalances in the relationship for a long time, constant complaints to Capricorn with a complete lack of support, financial parasitism, unwillingness of the other party to grow up, the period from February to July will bring a series of decisions that will determine whether it is worth continuing such a union. Representatives of this sign will be ready to preserve the family if they see a minimal willingness to work on problems, but they will not endlessly drag out a union where they are perceived as a resource without reciprocity. In August to September, breakups are possible, which will appear sudden from the outside, but in reality will be the logical result of many years of accumulated dissatisfaction. Single Capricorns in February 2026 will look at the topic of love without rose-colored glasses, but not without hope. They will formulate very specific requirements for a partner: responsibility, inner maturity, readiness for long distances, attitude to money and work, desire to develop, not parasitize. In March and April, encounters will more often take place not in entertainment venues, but where people show themselves in action: professional events, educational programs, business meetings, and work-related trips. In May to June, relationships may begin that will immediately have a serious tone, without excessive romantic pathos, but with a clear vision of shared prospects. Such unions will develop slowly but steadily. In October to November, they will have a chance to become official, with decisions about shared housing, family planning, or participation in each other's major life projects. For Capricorns, health in 2026 will be an indicator of how well they manage their workload. In January, the body will already be sending signals: chronic fatigue, tension in the back, joints, neck, unstable sleep, pressure drops against the backdrop of work stress. In February, it will become clear that ignoring these symptoms is dangerous. Capricorns will be forced to ask themselves how to ensure that their bodies can withstand the level of responsibility they are about to take on. In March, they will schedule a medical examination, primarily of the musculoskeletal system, cardiovascular system, hormonal background, and levels of vitamins and trace elements that directly affect endurance. In April, this sign will begin to introduce structural changes to their routine: a more defined sleep schedule, regular meals, work breaks that are not limited to checking work emails, simple exercises for the back and joints, and minimal but systematic physical activity. In May to June, body maintenance will become an integral part of the schedule: workouts, massages, preventive procedures, posture work, changing the workplace to a more ergonomic one, if possible. In July, Capricorn will already feel that their energy levels are evening out and their performance is becoming more stable, without sharp drops. In September, when the workload will increase again due to new projects and the final stages of major tasks, these habits will help you avoid breakdowns and maintain control over the situation. The topic of space and housing in 2026 will be of strategic importance for Capricorns. In February, they will look at their apartment or house through the prism of questions: does this space correspond to the standard of living they aspire to? Does it allow them to recover? Does it support their status? Does it keep them in the past? In March, they will begin to plan changes. For some, this will be renovations; for others, moving; and for others, purchasing additional real estate as an investment. In April and May, the search for options will intensify: inspections, consultations with realtors, negotiations with banks, and document verification. In June and July, the practical part will come to the fore: drawing up agreements, planning renovations, allocating budgets, searching for contractors, and monitoring the quality of work. Capricorns will treat this as another serious project in which they will not allow themselves or others to be negligent. In September to October, it will already be clear where this will lead. Either they will get a renovated, more comfortable space where every square meter will be put to good use, or they will move to a home that matches their new status and financial capabilities. In November, the feeling of "finally, it's done" will become one of the important internal markers of the year. Another important area is the development of competencies. In 2026, Capricorn will not be able to afford to remain at the level of old methods. In February, they will realize that in order to move forward, they need new knowledge in the areas of management, finance, law, digital technologies, and international standards, depending on their industry. In March, they will look for programs that provide a real practical foundation: professional courses, certifications, business schools, and specialized training. In April to June, they will already be learning, combining their main job with new knowledge, doing homework, completing case studies, and passing certifications. In July to August, the first results will appear. Capricorns will begin to think in broader categories, offering well-considered solutions that take into account not only the current situation, but also the long-term consequences. In September to October, the accumulated knowledge will transform into new positions and tasks. They will be entrusted with managing more complex units, involved in negotiations with partners who work according to different standards, and given access to levels where the old schemes no longer work. Social connections and reputation will be especially important for Capricorns in 2026. In February, they will see how different the people around them are. Some drag them down with constant complaints, fears, and unwillingness to change anything. Others will be ready to take responsibility, work, and take risks within reason. In March to April, they will begin to surround themselves with those who are moving forward rather than stuck in their comfort zone. These will be colleagues, partners, clients, and experts with whom they can talk about numbers, results, and strategies rather than just rumors and petty insults. In May to August, his circle of close business contacts will become smaller but much stronger. Capricorn will be able to rely on this circle in difficult moments, and he himself will be a support for others when a firm position, analysis, and endurance are needed. In October to November, their reputation in the professional environment will be so strong that new opportunities will come to them on their own. Invitations to boards of directors, participation in large projects, offers of cooperation from people with whom it previously seemed unrealistic to work on equal terms. As 2026 approaches its final phase in December, Capricorn will see how far the decisions made in February will take them. At the beginning of the year, they will still be bound by old structures and habits, work that does not allow them to fully realize their managerial potential, finances that keep them within the bounds of necessity rather than choice, relationships and space that are more reminiscent of past compromises than future goals. By the end of the year, the situation will change. Professional status will become stronger, money will become more manageable and productive. The home will be created or renovated in accordance with the new standard of living. Relationships will become more honest and mature, and health will be worked on and maintained rather than left to its own devices. And at the heart of this renewed landscape will lie the very internal shift that Capricorn will make in February 2026. The decision to no longer live on autopilot, but to build a reality where every step, every contract, every conversation, and every hryvnia will work toward their long-term stability, strength, and self-respect. Aquarius. Throughout 2026, Aquarius will gradually reach a completely different level of freedom and self-realization, and February will be the impetus for this. Back in January, representatives of this sign will feel that everything around them is based on temporary decisions. Their job seems suitable, but does not give them room for ideas. Their circle of friends is familiar, but limiting. Their life is filled with activities that do not lead to any specific long-term picture. February will force Aquarius to look at this without self-deception. They will begin to see where their mind, creativity, technological abilities, and atypical thinking are being used at half capacity, and where they are being suppressed altogether. And it is from this month that they will begin to move themselves out of habit mode and into a mode of purposeful change. In the professional field, February 2026 will be a turning point for Aquarius, from which they will begin to reformat their path towards more modern and flexible models. People of this sign will no longer put up with an environment where new ideas are perceived as a threat, where any initiative is blocked by phrases such as, "It's not done," or "We don't need that right now." In the second month of the year, they will carefully analyze whether their current job meets 3 criteria: development, freedom of action, and growth prospects. If even one of these criteria is missing, Aquarians will seriously consider changing their format. In March, they will begin to study the market, remote projects, international companies, technology startups, creative agencies, educational platforms, and media that need specialists with non-standard thinking, capable of combining analytics with innovation. In April, Aquarius will no longer be limited to 1 or 2 vacancies. They will consider several areas at once: salaried work with a flexible schedule, freelancing, launching their own online initiative, and participating in partnership projects. It will be essential for them that their employment matches their way of thinking. Fewer mechanical tasks, more design, research, organizational and production work. In May, the first concrete results will appear. Invitations to interviews, test assignments, offers of cooperation from people who are ready to focus not on experience in a paper resume, but on real skills, portfolios, and the ability to learn and adapt quickly. In June, Aquarius will already be working on projects that require the active use of modern tools, digital platforms, automation systems, data analytics, and creative formats for working with audiences. For some, this will be the IT sphere. For others, online education, marketing, product development, design, consulting, production of information products, or media content. The important thing is that they will no longer feel like a cog in someone else's scheme. In July to August, the issue of working time structure will come to the fore. Aquarians will determine when and where it is more convenient for them to work, how to combine several areas, and how to avoid burnout due to excessive overload. In September, they will have not 1, but 2 or 3 work vectors, their main income, additional projects that expand their experience, and, possibly, their own channel or platform where they can express themselves without outside filters. The financial part of 2026 for Aquarius will also start in February, but not in the form of strict economy, but in the form of rational structuring. In January, they may still spend money quite chaotically on gadgets, spontaneous trips, interesting but unnecessary subscriptions, projects for the soul that do not have clear monetization. In February, there will be a tangible need to understand how much his freedom actually costs, how much money he needs each month for a normal standard of living, how much he is willing to invest in development, and what reserves he needs to build up so as not to be dependent on one customer, one company, or one city. In March, Aquarius will begin to keep track of income and expenses, not by eye, but systematically. He will separate basic needs from unnecessary impulsive spending, calculate how many resources go to things that really improve the quality of life: housing, technology, education, health, and how many go to compensate for fatigue and boredom. In April, they will take the first steps towards creating a financial cushion. They will open a separate account for reserves, set up automatic transfers, or simply allocate a fixed amount in their budget that they will not touch. In May to June, income will begin to even out thanks to new forms of work, and Aquarians will be able to not only cover their current expenses, but also systematically save. In July, They will look further ahead. What can be done with the accumulated funds so that they do not just sit there, but work? There are two possible directions here. The first is investing in themselves. Additional courses, choosing better equipment, renting or setting up a workplace, participating in events that provide access to new levels of contacts. The second is cautious financial instruments, deposits, simple and understandable investment decisions without unnecessary risk. In September to October, Aquarius will no longer feel that money is slipping through their fingers. On the contrary, they will see the connection between their actions in February to March and how much more calmly they can plan for November to December. By the end of the year, they will have a minimal but real reserve, several sources of income, and an understanding of where to go next to increase their financial freedom without strict restrictions. In relationships, 2026 will be a year of honesty and renewal for Aquarius. In January, they may still be able to put up with situations where they are not heard or are being forced into a correct pattern that goes against their nature. In February, their patience will run out. They will start to speak directly about what suits them and what does not. In existing relationships, this will manifest itself in conversations about boundaries, freedom, personal space, joint decisions, and respect for individual plans. Aquarius will not want to live in a relationship where any initiative is perceived as a threat to stability, and every new project is a cause for conflict. In March, Aquarius's partners will have a chance to show whether they are ready to build a union with a living person, rather than a convenient addition to their life. Where there is real potential, talking about freedom will not lead to a breakup. On the contrary, the couple will begin to agree on how to combine schedules, how not to suffocate each other with jealousy, how to support each other during periods of professional growth, and how to divide financial and household responsibilities. In April to May, such relationships will grow stronger as Aquarius stops hiding their true needs and pretending that the bare minimum is enough for them. In June to July, decisions about major joint steps are possible. Moving, renovating, buying a home, launching a family business project, changing their lifestyle. If the couple has accumulated too many unresolved conflicts, if the partner systematically devalues Aquarius's ideas, limits contacts and opportunities, February to June will be a period when the question of to be together or not will be decided once and for all. Aquarius will not want to drag along a person who is afraid of every step they take forward. In such cases, there may be a breakup or a shift to a long-distance relationship without clear commitments. After February 2026, single Aquarians will look at dating in a completely different way. Instead of looking for superficial excitement and short-term romances to lift their spirits, they will focus on people with whom they can talk for hours about ideas, plans, technology, the future, and what they can build together. In March to April, new contacts will more often arise through professional circles, online communities, educational programs, and trips related to development. In May to August, these connections may develop into relationships where Aquarius will immediately see whether their partner will support their desire for independence or try to restrict it. By the end of the year, there is a high probability that they will enter into a union where two adults can move at their own pace without breaking each other through standard patterns. Health issues in 2026 will not remain in the shadows either. At the beginning of the year, in January, Aquarius will already feel the effects of previous periods when sleep, nutrition, and daily routine were put aside for urgent matters. In February, the body will give clear signals. Chronic fatigue, irritability, to concentration problems and energy swings from super highs to complete exhaustion may appear. This will be a reason to think about how to plan the year so that there is enough energy for new projects, moving, studying, and relationships. In March, Aquarius will undergo basic diagnostics. They will take tests, check key indicators, and visit doctors they have been meaning to see for a long time. In April, they will begin to introduce minimal but systematic changes. A more stable sleep schedule, reducing chaotic snacking, reducing the amount of stimulants such as excessive coffee or energy drinks, and simple physical activities such as walking, light workouts, and stretching. In May to June, these habits will begin to yield results. His mind will work more clearly, his memory and attention will become more stable, and mood swings will decrease. In July, when the pace of life picks up again, Aquarius will already have a set of rules in place that will prevent him from burning out completely. They will understand how many hours they can work without a break, how to organize short breaks for recovery, what activities to add after difficult working days, and how to avoid setbacks in the form of nighttime binge-watching or uncontrolled nighttime snacking. In September to October, those Aquarians who listen to their bodies will enter autumn without any critical breakdowns, while those who ignore the signals of February and March may face temporary problems, from functional disorders to a sharp drop in energy, which will force them to stop and redo everything. In 2026, home space for Aquarius will not just be an address, but a factor that will either support or hinder their development. In February, they will begin to view their home as an environment where their ideas and decisions are formed, where space is cluttered with things that have not been used for a long time, where everything reminds them of old obligations, unsuccessful stages, and unfulfilled plans. There will be a need for radical cleansing. In March, Aquarius will begin to get rid of the unnecessary, appliances that do not work, clothes that have not been worn for years, papers that only take up space, old souvenirs associated with periods of life to which there is no need to return. In April to May, they will not just throw things away, but rethink their space, where the workplace should be, how to organize lighting, what should be in sight to energize rather than exhaust. In June to July, a decision to move may be made to a quieter area for concentration or to a more dynamic part of the city where it is easier to build contacts, to a larger apartment or, conversely, a more compact but more functional one. In August to September, many Aquarians will already be living in a renewed space, physically or simply through thoughtful organization. Home will become a place where you can quickly recharge and return to business with a clear head. In 2026, learning and expanding skills will not be an optional extra for Aquarians, but a prerequisite. In February, people of this sign will clearly realize that the world will move forward at such a pace that it will be dangerous to rely solely on old knowledge. In March, they will begin to choose areas in which to invest time and money. New technologies, digital tools, specialized programs, foreign languages, audience engagement skills, personal branding, production, and team management. In April, they will already be in their first courses or intensive training programs. In May to July, the accumulated knowledge will begin to be put into practice. Aquarians will test new work formats, launch trial products, experiment with the style of presenting information, and look for more effective tools for solving work tasks. In August to October, these experiments will lead to him finding himself in a different weight category on the market. Instead of simply performing other people's tasks, he will begin to offer his own solutions, formats, and strategies. In November to December, it will become clear that the decision to study in 2026 will have a dramatic impact on what projects he will be able to work on and with whom in the coming years. As Aquarius approaches the end of 2026 in December, he will see how much his personal life chart has changed compared to January. At the beginning of the year, they will still feel that they are forced to adapt to other people's schemes. A job that does not give them space, relationships where their freedom is perceived as a threat, finances that depend on a single source, housing that does not meet their goals, and a regime that is exhausting. By the end of the year, the picture will be different. A flexible work model where his non-standard thinking is valued, several sources of income, a circle of friends that will support his development, a home where he can work and relax comfortably, relationships where freedom does not conflict with intimacy, health that is no longer a matter of chance, but the result of conscious decisions. And the key moment from which this whole chain of events will begin to unravel will be February 2026, the month when Aquarius will allow themselves not to live by inertia, but to build a life in such a way that their quick mind, need for novelty, ability to think ahead, and desire to be useful to the world work to their fullest extent. Pisces. For Pisces, the turning point of 2026 will come in February, but it will not manifest itself as a sudden explosion of events, but as a clear shift in internal decisions that will entail specific steps throughout the year. In January, representatives of this sign will still allow themselves to go with the flow. They will postpone important conversations, agree to old working conditions, and sacrifice their own plans for the sake of others' needs. February will force Pisces to look at everything differently. It will become clear that this attitude will no longer stand up to reality. They will begin to realize what they will do, how much they will earn, where they will live, and with whom they will build their future. And this will no longer be a vague dream, but a consistent strategy. In terms of work and career, February 2026 will be a turning point when Pisces will abandon the position of "I feel uncomfortable asking" and move to the position of "I know my worth." If before this they agreed to tasks that did not match their level, to low-paying projects, to the role of a quiet performer in the shadows, then in the second month of the year, this will feel like an overuse of energy. Pisces will analyze whether their current job gives them a sense of professional growth, whether there are prospects, whether it opens up new markets, and whether it allows them to use not only empathy, but also intellect, creativity, and analytics. Where the answer is negative, in March, they will actively begin searching for alternatives, not chaotically, but according to clear criteria: decent pay, respect for personal time, and real development. In April, Pisces will receive their first offers from companies looking for specialists who can understand people more deeply than superficial patterns. These may be in the fields of psychology, consulting, design, media, marketing, creative industries, education, medicine, social projects, and highly personalized services. Representatives of this sign will find that where they were previously considered too sensitive, now this sensitivity will be seen as a key professional tool. In May, they will already be in a new position or working in a new format, partially remote, flexible, focused on results rather than clocking in. In June, career processes will go deeper. Pisces will begin to form their own professional style, how they communicate with clients, how they make decisions, how they set priorities. They will have to take on more responsibility for product quality, for compliance with agreements, for timely completion of projects. In July and August, complex tasks will come to the fore, those that require taking into account numbers, the human factor, and long-term consequences at the same time. Pisces will cope not by chance, but because in February they allowed themselves to step out of the role of the easygoing person and agreed to take on the weight of real decisions. In September, they will already be perceived by colleagues and management as a full-fledged partner, and not just the soul of the team. The financial line of 2026 for Pisces will be directly related to how they behave with their talents. In January, money may still disappear due to uncertainty, chaotic spending, and unwillingness to say no to others. Pisces will help relatives and friends, agree to work for the idea, buy gifts, and sometimes cover for others' mistakes. In February, they will realize that such financial schemes will no longer work. They will begin to calculate what really falls within their basic needs, what amounts go toward development, and what simply dissolves into emotional yeses to other people's requests. In March, Pisces will set clear rules for themselves, who they are willing to help and to what extent, what they are willing to spend without hesitation, and where they need to set limits. This will not turn them into a harsh person. On the contrary, they will learn to value their own work enough not to devalue it by giving it away for free in all directions. In April, when new professional formats begin to bring the first noticeable increase in income, Pisces will not spend this money immediately, but will set aside a portion as a reserve. In May and June, this habit will become permanent. A certain percentage of each project, each salary, and each fee will go toward a safety net. In July, representatives of this sign will start thinking about how to use some of their funds to improve themselves. A high-quality laptop, new programs, courses, certifications, workspace, and equipment for creating content. They will understand that these are not unnecessary expenses, but investments that will directly affect their income level. In August to September, the financial situation will become noticeably more stable. Even if there are fluctuations in projects or delays in payment, reserves and several sources of income will allow them not to panic. In October to November, Pisces will no longer feel like a person dependent on the mood of one employer or customer. In December, they will approach the end of the year with the feeling that they have learned to manage money, rather than grabbing whatever falls from above. In the romantic and emotional sphere, 2026 will be a time when Pisces will realize that gentleness does not equal self-sacrifice. In January, they may still hold on to relationships where their partner puts their own interests first and pushes their needs to later. In February, this will become too obvious to ignore. Pisces will begin to formulate simple and specific things. What support means to them, how they see a shared future, what respect for their work, time, and goals means to them. In relationships with a real foundation, this will lead to difficult but productive conversations. In March, Pisces partners will show how ready they are to change with them, whether they will take their schedule into account, help during periods of professional growth, or make decisions about joint expenses and living arrangements based on us rather than me logic. In April to May, such couples will be able to take on big joint tasks, renovations, moving, starting a business, planning for a child, or expanding the family. It will be important for Pisces to feel that they are not carrying the burden alone. In June to July, these unions will be tested for stress resistance, but if the foundation is strong, the year will only strengthen them. Where relationships have long been built on manipulation, guilt, and constant "you must," February to June will be a period of open conflict and decisions. Pisces will no longer want to suppress their desires in order to avoid arguments. If their partner is categorically unwilling to see them as an equal, rather than a savior or psychotherapist, a breakup or clear distancing is possible in the second half of the year. In August to September, it will become clear who in their circle truly appreciates them and who has only taken advantage of their kindness. Single representatives of this sign will not approach the question of love superficially in 2026. After the experience of February, when Pisces will begin to defend their own boundaries, in March to April, they will be much more attentive to the first signals in communication. How a potential partner reacts to their work, ambitions, plans, friends, and lifestyle. People who try to restrict them will be weeded out at the start. The most promising acquaintances will arise in the process of joint activities, educational, charitable, creative, or professional projects. In May to August, relationships may begin where there will be an atmosphere of support and mutual interest in each other's inner worlds from the start. By December, some of the Pisces who were single in January will find themselves in a relationship where their tenderness will not be used against them. Health, throughout 2026, will respond to every decision Pisces makes regarding stress and rest. In January, they may experience fatigue, heaviness in the body, sleep problems, and emotional swings, especially if previous years were filled with stress and instability. In February, it will become clear that ignoring the body's signals is no longer an option. Pisces will begin to notice how lack of sleep, nighttime anxiety, inability to say no to people, and working without a break affect their well-being. In March, they will take the first steps toward a systematic approach. They will schedule basic tests, consultations with specialists, and checkups of their heart, hormonal background, and digestive organs. In April, Pisces will begin to gradually establish a routine, going to bed and waking up at approximately the same time, setting aside at least a few days a week for walks and minimal physical activity, and giving up the habit of eating away stress. In May to June, the body will respond. The mind will become clearer, the nervous system more stable, and morning wake-ups less difficult. In July to August, when the workload at work and in personal life increases, Pisces will already have a basic set of habits that will prevent them from exhausting themselves. Short breaks during the day, alternating intellectual work with movement, consciously limiting information noise. In September, if they continue to take care of themselves, their strength and endurance will allow them to take on large projects without fear of falling halfway through. If the signals of February to April are ignored, sharp drops in energy are possible in the fall, which will force them to stop and simplify their schedule, even if they really don't want to. Housing issues for Pisces in 2026 will be directly related to their sense of inner support. People of this sign need space where they can not only relax, but also reflect on events and feel safe. In February, they will assess how well their current home supports them. Is there a place for work, quiet, creativity? Or is the space overloaded with things that drag them into the past? In March, they will begin to tidy up with an eye to the future, throwing away the unnecessary, freeing up space, and simplifying their daily life. In April to May, Pisces may feel the desire to change their home, to move closer to work, to nature, to an area with better infrastructure, to another city or country, depending on their circumstances. In June and July, they will actively look for options, analyze ads, consult with those who have already had experience moving, and look at prices. In August to September, some Pisces will already be living in a new space or finishing renovations/replanning. In October to November, it will become clear how much the change of residence will affect their quality of life. It will be easier to recover, work, record content, receive guests, and simply be themselves. A separate vector will be the theme of learning and self-development. In February, Pisces will clearly understand that to rise to a higher level in their profession, it is not enough to simply be responsive and responsible. New knowledge is needed. instrumental, specific. In March, they will begin to select programs. Perhaps these will be courses in psychology, coaching, design, programming, video work, copywriting, SMM, management, language courses, depending on where they see themselves. In April, they will already be enrolled in their first educational programs. In May to July, the acquired knowledge will begin to be applied in practice. Pisces will test new approaches in working with clients, create their own products and formats, and try different styles of communication and other promotion channels. In September to October, this will become the foundation for a new status. He will cease to be seen as just a talented, kind person, and will become a specialist with clear skills and results. By the end of the year, this status will be cemented in reviews, figures, requests for cooperation, and new contracts. Family relationships in 2026 will require Pisces to be more level-headed than they may have been in the past. In January, they will still have the habit of constantly rescuing someone in their family, paying off someone's debts, listening to endless complaints, taking on the emotional burden of all problems. In February, it will become clear that this format takes too much energy. In March, Pisces will begin to gently but persistently push boundaries. Where they used to drop everything and rush to put out the fire, they will now offer solutions but not do everything for others. In April to June, family members will not immediately accept the new position, but will gradually begin to respect it. They will see that Pisces is not abandoning the family, but is no longer willing to pay for other people's irresponsibility with their own health and career. In July to August, constructive formats will come to the fore. Joint budget planning, division of responsibilities, participation of other family members in caring for the elderly, children, and solving everyday issues. In November to December, Pisces will feel that their family is no longer an endless source of guilt, and is becoming a more balanced space where they are also heard. At the end of 2026, in December, Pisces will see how far the decisions made in February have brought them. In January, they will still be feeding on illusions that somehow everything will work out on its own if they are patient enough, help others, and put their own interests aside. By the end of the year, the situation will be different. Work will be more meaningful and better paid. Money will be under control rather than out of control. The home will be tidy or renovated. Relationships will be more honest and healthier, and the inner circle will be smaller but more reliable. They will feel that they are no longer just adapting, but have become someone who, without losing their humanity, is steering their own course. And the key to this will be February 2026, the month when Pisces will allow themselves to put their own lives at the center of their decisions.